The moment Lila Hart's fingers brushed against that parchment, she knew three things. It was fake, the man across the table could kill her, and she had exactly 10 seconds to decide if staying invisible was worth more than the truth. Thunder cracked outside the plaza's private dining room. Rain hammered the windows, and inside a deal worth $12 million was about to close on a lie. If you want to see how one waitress brought down an empire with nothing but her brain and a death wish, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see how far this story travels. The crystal chandeliers in the plaza's crown room cast shadows that danced like ghosts across white tablecloths. Lila Hart moved between them, carrying a tray of champagne flutes, her reflection fractured in a dozen surfaces: windows, silverware, the polished mahogany of the bar. Invisible. That's what she'd become good at, really damn good. 6 years ago, she'd been Dr. Lila Hart, youngest tenure-track professor in Columbia's history department. Now she was the girl who remembered your drink order and laughed at jokes that weren't funny. The girl who existed in the margins of other people's important nights. "More champagne, table 7, Marco hissed from behind the bar. His accent got thicker when he was stressed, and tonight he was practically sweating through his vest. "And for Christ's sake, don't make eye contact. These aren't regular rich people." Lila knew. She'd been watching table 7 all night, the way you watch a snake you're not sure is venomous yet. 5 men in suits that cost more than her annual rent. 4 of them doing the talking. The one in the center with silver at his temples and a face like a Roman statue, just listening. Listening the way a predator listens before it strikes. Dante Moretti. She'd recognized him the moment he walked in, though she'd never seen him in person. You didn't spend 6 years in Manhattan without learning which names mattered, which faces appeared in newspapers under headlines about alleged this and suspected that. The kind of articles where every other word was declined to comment, or no charges filed. The kind of man her mother would have warned her about, if her mother could still form complete sentences. Lila loaded her tray, checking her reflection in the bar mirror. Dark hair pulled back tight. Minimal makeup. The uniform that every server wore. Black pants, white shirt, the plaza's gold pin. Anonymous. Safe. "Table 7's courier just arrived," Marco muttered. "Big briefcase, bigger attitude. Whatever they're doing, it's about to go down." She lifted the tray and moved through the room like water, flowing around conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. Someone laughed too loud at table 3. Table 9 wanted more bread. Table 7 wanted champagne and silence. The courier stood at the head of the table now, a thin man with wire-frame glasses and hands that shook slightly as he placed a leather portfolio in front of Dante Moretti. Lila approached from the left, setting down glasses with practiced efficiency. Close enough to serve, far enough to be forgettable. "Gentlemen," the courier said, his voice high and reedy. "As requested, the Cortez manuscript, authenticated by 3 independent experts, carbon-dated, provenance verified back to 1521. Dante didn't move, didn't reach for the portfolio, just sat there with his hands folded on the table, dark eyes fixed on the courier like he was memorizing him for later. "Open it," he said. His voice was quiet, quieter than it should have been to carry that much weight. The courier fumbled with the clasps. Inside, nestled in burgundy silk, lay a document that made Lila's heart stop mid-beat. Parchment. Old enough that she could smell the centuries on it from where she stood. Text in Spanish, the letters formed with iron gall ink that had oxidized to that distinctive brown-black. Margins decorated with small illustrations. Ships, swords, a coastline that might have been the New World when it was still new. She'd written her dissertation on Spanish colonial documentation. Spent 3 years in archives that smelled like dust and old leather, learning to read conquistador script, to identify paper mills by their watermarks, to spot the tiny tells that separated genuine history from clever fake. Her hands kept moving, setting down glasses, but her brain had shifted into a different gear entirely. The gear that had earned her a PhD at 26. The gear she'd buried under Smile and Serve for 6 years because expertise didn't pay her mother's medical bills. Hernan Cortez himself wrote this, the courier was saying, his personal account of meeting Montezuma. There are only 3 known Cortez manuscripts in private hands. This would be the 4th. Would be. That choice of words landed different when you knew what you were looking at. Dante's associate, a broad-shouldered man with a Brooklyn accent and a scar through his left eyebrow, leaned forward. "And you're telling me this is worth $12 million?" "Conservative estimate," the courier said quickly. "At auction, it could go higher, much higher." Lila poured champagne into Dante's glass, her movements automatic, her eyes on the manuscript. The text was right. The style was right. Even the illustrations had that authentic amateur quality. Conquistadors didn't hire professional illuminators for field journals. But something was wrong. Something she couldn't quite name yet, like a song played in the wrong key. "The ink," one of Dante's men said. "How do we know—" "Spectroscopy confirms iron gall ink consistent with the period," the courier interrupted. "The parchment is genuine 16th century vellum. The binding is original. Gentlemen, this document was buried in a monastery in Seville for 400 years. It's as legitimate as they come." Lila circled to the other side of the table, her tray empty now, but that didn't matter. She needed to see the other pages, needed to see... There. The courier turned a page, and Lila's breath caught. The watermark. Jesus Christ, the watermark. Vellum didn't have watermarks. It was animal skin, not paper. You could put whatever authentic 16th century text you wanted on it, age it perfectly, make it smell like a Spanish monastery. But you couldn't make it paper, and you couldn't put a watermark where there shouldn't be one. Except there it was, visible when the chandelier light hit the page at the right angle. Faint but unmistakable to someone who knew what to look for. An anchor. The Zonghi mark. From a paper mill in Tuscany that didn't exist until 1615. 94 years too late. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The manuscript was fake. Not just fake, it was a good fake. The kind that took real skill and historical knowledge to create. The kind that would fool experts because experts looked for the big tells, not the tiny ones. Not the impossible watermark on vellum that wasn't actually vellum at all. Dante was reaching for a pen. Someone had produced a contract, papers were rustling, champagne was being raised, and $12 million was about to change hands for a forgery. Lila should have walked away. Should have carried her tray back to the bar, finished her shift, gone home to her studio apartment in Washington Heights, and the smell of old curry and traffic noise. Should have stayed invisible because invisible people didn't get hurt. Her mother's voice in her head, weak and wavering. "Be careful, baby. Don't make waves. We can't afford waves." They couldn't. Not with the bills for a Mount Sinai piling up, not with early onset Alzheimer's eating her mother's memories one day at a time, not with Lila's own student debt still crushing her at 32. They needed this job, needed the health insurance it barely provided, needed the tips from men like Dante Moretti who didn't even look at the people who served them. The pen was in Dante's hand now. The contract was on the table. His associate was reading terms out loud. Payment in full upon authentication, with Mr. Moretti retaining full ownership and exhibition rights. Thunder rattled the windows. The storm had gotten worse, rain sheeting down the glass like the sky was melting. Lila's feet had carried her back toward the bar, muscle memory pulling her away from danger the way it always did. But her brain wouldn't let go of that watermark. That impossible, anachronistic $12 million mistake. If Dante signed that contract, he'd lose everything. The money, sure, but men like him, men whose names appeared in newspapers with words like alleged attached, couldn't afford to look stupid, couldn't afford to be the guy who got scammed. In his world, weakness was blood in the water. And when he found out he'd been fooled, because he would find out eventually, someone would catch it, he'd want to know why nobody had warned him, why the experts had missed it, why everyone in this room had just let him sign. Her feet stopped moving. Marco was staring at her from behind the bar, shaking his head in tiny, urgent movements. "Don't," his expression said. "Whatever you're thinking, don't." Lila set her tray down on the nearest empty table. Her hands were shaking, her mouth was dry. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 6 years of staying small, staying quiet, staying alive was screaming at her to walk away. She turned and walked back to table 7. The room seemed to telescope around her, sounds getting distant and hollow. Her footsteps on the carpet. The scratch of Dante's pen on paper. Someone's phone buzzing. Rain hammering the windows like it was trying to get in. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Not loud, but clear. Clear enough that the conversation at the table stopped. clear enough that Dante Moretti looked up from the contract he was about to sign and met her eyes for the first time all night. They were dark. Not just brown, genuinely dark, like light went in and didn't come back out. He didn't look angry yet, just surprised that a waitress was speaking. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Lila continued, her voice picking up momentum now, the professor in her clawing its way back to the surface. "But that manuscript, it's fake." Silence, the kind that felt physical, like the air had turned to concrete. The courier's face went white. His associate with the scar stood up, chair scraping back. The other men at the table started to move, reaching for— "Nobody moves," Dante said. Still quiet, still carrying all that weight. Everyone froze. Dante set down his pen with deliberate care and leaned back in his chair, studying Lila the way she imagined he studied a lot of things before deciding whether they lived or died. "You," he said, "the waitress. You're telling me this document, authenticated by 3 experts, carbon dated with verified provenance, is fake?" It wasn't a question, but it needed an answer. "Yes," Lila said. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something in her had shifted, some gear she thought she'd lost clicking back into place. "The text is right. The style is right. The aging is perfect. Whoever made this knew what they were doing. But they made a mistake. And you caught this mistake," Dante said. "You, a waitress." The courier had recovered enough to splutter. "This is absurd. Mr. Moretti, this woman has no credentials, no expertise." "Dr. Hart," Lila said, the title feeling strange in her mouth after 6 years. "I have a PhD in colonial Latin American history from Colombia. I spent 3 years working with Spanish manuscripts from this exact period. I know Cortez's hand. I know the paper mills, the ink compositions, the binding techniques. And I know that what you're selling is a very good forgery." The scarred associate had pulled a gun. Nobody else seemed surprised by this. "Want me to—" he started. "No," Dante said. He hadn't taken his eyes off Lila. "I want to hear what she has to say. Dr. Hart, explain." Lila's mouth had gone dry again, but she pushed through it. "The watermark," she said, moving closer to the table, close enough to point. "There. You can see it when the light hits the page at this angle. It's the Zonghi anchor mark from a paper mill in Tuscany." The courier leaned forward, squinting. "I don't see—" "Look at the way the light refracts through the page," Lila said. "Vellum doesn't have watermarks. It's animal skin. But this isn't vellum. It's paper treated to look and feel like vellum. Very high-quality paper. The kind that could fool spectroscopy if you weren't looking for the cellulose signature specifically." She reached towards the manuscript, and 3 men reached for weapons, but Dante held up a hand. "Show me," he said. Lila lifted the page carefully, holding it up to the chandelier light. The watermark became visible, faint but unmistakable. An anchor with a chain. Beautiful. Authentic. Wrong. "The Zonghi Mill," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It's a genuine 16th century mark, but it's from the wrong decade. This specific anchor design with the chain coiled this way, it didn't appear until 1615. Cortez died in 1547. He couldn't have written on paper that wouldn't exist for another 70 years. The room had gone so quiet she could hear rain pattering on the balcony outside. The courier's face was no longer white. It was gray. The color of someone who knew they were caught. Dante stood up. He moved slowly, like a man who didn't need to hurry because running wouldn't save you anyway. He picked up the manuscript, held it to the light the way Lila had shown him, looked at the watermark, looked at the courier. "Is she right?" he asked. His voice was still quiet. "Mr. Moretti, I can explain. Is she right?" The courier's hands were shaking again, worse than before. "The experts, they authenticated—" "I didn't ask about the experts," Dante said. "I asked if she's right." The courier swallowed hard, looked at the door, probably calculating distances, escape routes, whether he could make it past the scarred man with the gun. "Yes," he finally whispered. "Yes, she's right." The scarred associate raised his gun. "Not here," Dante said. "Take him downstairs. I'll deal with him later." 2 men Lila hadn't even noticed before materialized from corners of the room, grabbing the courier by his arms. He didn't fight, didn't scream, Just let himself be dragged toward a service exit she'd used 100 times for trash runs and smoke breaks. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Dante turned to Lila. Rain hammered the windows, lightning flickered, throwing shadows across his face. "You just saved me $12 million, he said. "I just told you the truth," Lila replied. Her voice was steady, but her legs felt like water. "In my experience, those aren't the same thing." He gestured to the chair the courier had vacated. "Sit." Lila looked at the chair, at the manuscript still lying on the table, at the contract that hadn't been signed, at Dante Moretti, who was studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't figured out yet. "I should get back to work," she said. "My shift isn't over." "Your shift is over," Dante said. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Lila sat. Dante reclaimed his own chair, pouring champagne into a fresh glass and sliding it across to her. His movements were precise, controlled. Everything about him was controlled, like a bomb that had learned to pretend it wasn't ticking. "You're Dr. Lila Hart," he said, PhD from Columbia. Dissertation on Spanish colonial documentation and forgery detection in early modern manuscripts. Published 3 papers before you were 28. Youngest tenure-track professor in the department's history. He paused. "Then you disappeared." Lila's hand froze halfway to the champagne glass. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things," Dante said, "especially after someone just prevented me from making a very expensive mistake. The question is, why is Dr. Lila Hart serving champagne in a hotel dining room when she could be teaching at Columbia?" "Personal reasons," Lila said carefully. "Medical bills," Dante corrected. "Your mother, Louise Hart, Mount Sinai's memory care unit, early onset Alzheimer's, very expensive care, more expensive than an associate professor's salary could cover, especially with student debt. So you left academia, picked up shifts at the plaza, and spent 6 years being invisible." He leaned forward. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" "Because invisible people don't get hurt," Lila said. The champagne was very cold in her hand, and I couldn't afford to get hurt. "But you spoke up tonight. Tonight you were about to lose $12 million on a forgery. That felt like something worth speaking up for." Dante smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Most people wouldn't have cared." "I'm not most people." "No," he agreed. "You're not." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "How much does your mother's care cost per month?" Lila's stomach dropped. I didn't ask if you needed it. I asked how much it costs." $15,000, Lila said. The number tasted like ash. Plus medications. Plus the studio apartment near the facility so I can visit. Plus 20,000 then, Dante said, conservatively. "About that." He set his phone down. "I'm going to make you an offer, Dr. Hart. You can say no, but I'd advise you to think very carefully before you do." Lila's hands had started shaking again. "What kind of offer?" "I collect art," Dante said. "Historical documents, rare books, paintings, antiquities. I've been collecting for 20 years. My collection is worth approximately $500 million. He gestured to the fake manuscript. "And apparently someone has been selling me forgeries. Expensive ones. This isn't the first time I've been approached with documents that seem too good to be true, but tonight is the first time anyone caught it before I signed." "You want me to authenticate your collection," Lila said slowly. "I want you to work for me," Dante corrected. "Full time, authenticating new acquisitions, reviewing existing pieces, building security protocols to prevent this from happening again. I'll cover your mother's care, all of it. I'll pay off your student debt. I'll give you access to archives and resources most scholars never see. And I'll pay you enough that you never have to carry a champagne tray again." It was too much, too good, too dangerous. "Why?" Lila asked. "You could hire any expert in the city." "I just watched every expert in the city miss what you caught in 30 seconds, Dante said. "You have something they don't." "What's that?" "You see what's actually there," he said. "Not what you expect to be there. That's rare, valuable." He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Take tonight to think about it. Tomorrow, call this number." He slid a business card across the table. "Simple. Expensive paper. Just a phone number. Or don't call. Go back to your shifts. Stay invisible. But Dr. Hart?" He paused at the door. "The people who sold me this forgery, They're going to figure out you're the one who exposed it, and they're going to wonder what else you know. Invisible isn't going to protect you anymore." Then he was gone, his remaining associates following like shadows, and Lila was alone at table 7 with a fake manuscript, an empty champagne glass, and a business card that felt like it was burning a hole in the table. Marco appeared at her elbow, his face pale. "Lila, what the hell did you just do?" "I have no idea," she said. Her voice sounded far away, like it was coming from underwater. "Marco, I think I just ruined my life." "Or saved it," he said, staring at the door where Dante had disappeared. "Jesus, Lila. That was Dante Moretti. You know who he is, right?" "I know. And you just... Marco couldn't finish the sentence. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the stupidest. Can I be both?" He laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "You need to go home. I'll cover the rest of your shift." Lila nodded, standing on legs that didn't quite feel attached to her body. She grabbed her coat from the staff room, stuffed the business card in her pocket, and walked out into the rain. The city was drowning. Water sheeted down from awnings, turned gutters into rivers, made the lights blur into impressionist paintings. Lila stood under the plaza's awning, watching taxis spray up sheets of water, trying to remember how to breathe normally. She'd spoken up. After 6 years of silence, of hiding, of being invisible, she'd opened her mouth and everything had changed. Dante Moretti knew her name, knew where she lived, knew about her mother, her debt, her carefully constructed invisible life. And somewhere out there, the people who'd tried to scam him out of $12 million now knew her name too. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Lila stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Dr. Hart," a man's voice said. Not Dante. Someone else. Younger. Nervous. "My employer wants you to know that tonight's misunderstanding was unfortunate, but it doesn't have to become a problem for anyone." "Who is this?" "Someone who can make sure you stay safe," the voice said. "All you have to do is forget what you saw tonight. The manuscript, the watermark, all of it. Just forget it and keep doing your job at the plaza, and nothing has to change." Lila's mouth had gone dry. "And if I don't forget?" "Then we'll help you forget," the voice said. "Along with your mother. Mount Sinai's a nice facility, easy to access, easy to visit." The line went dead. Lila stood in the rain, phone clutched in her hand, water soaking through her coat. They'd threatened her mother. In less than an hour, she'd gone from invisible to marked, from safe to hunted. The business card in her pocket suddenly felt less like an offer and more like a lifeline. She pulled it out, rain already starting to blur the ink. Just a number. No name, no company. Nothing to indicate who Dante Moretti was or what calling him would mean. But he'd been right about one thing. Invisible wasn't protecting her anymore. Lila stepped off the curb and flagged down a taxi. Gave the driver her address in Washington Heights. Watched the city blur past through rain-streaked windows. Her apartment was exactly how she'd left it. Small, clean, mostly empty except for the books. Books everywhere, stacked on surfaces and stuffed in makeshift shelves, the only thing she hadn't been willing to give up when she'd stripped her life down to essentials. Spanish colonial histories, treatises on forgery detection. Her own PhD thesis, bound in blue, never opened anymore because it hurt too much to remember who she used to be. She changed out of her wet clothes, made tea she didn't drink, stared at the business card on her kitchen counter. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. This one she recognized. "Mount Sinai Memory Care," she answered. "Ms. Hart?" The night nurse, Julia. Kind voice. Bad news voice. "Your mother had an episode tonight. She got confused, tried to leave the facility. We had to sedate her. Is she okay?" "She's stable now, but Ms. Hart, these episodes are getting more frequent. Doctor Martinez wants to discuss increasing her medication regimen. The new protocol it's expensive." Of course it was. Everything was expensive. Living was expensive. Caring was expensive. Survival was a luxury she could barely afford. "How expensive?" Julia quoted a number that made Lila's stomach turn. 5,000 more per month. Money she didn't have. Money she couldn't make carrying champagne trays. I'll figure it out, Lila said. The lie tasted bitter. I know you will. You always do. But Ms. Hart, maybe it's time to think about— Don't, Lila said. Don't tell me it's time to think about letting go. She's my mother. She's all I have. I wasn't going to say that, Julia said gently. I was going to say maybe it's time to ask for help. Help? From who? From Dante Moretti, a man whose name appeared in newspapers under headlines about organized crime? A man who'd just had someone dragged out of a restaurant to some undisclosed location for some undisclosed purpose? Or from the people who'd just threatened to visit her mother if Lila didn't forget what she'd seen? Some choice. Some life. Lila ended the call and picked up the business card again. Just a number. Just a choice. Just her entire future, balanced on whether she dialed. Thunder cracked overhead, close enough to rattle her windows. The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. She thought about invisibility, about safety, about 6 years of serving champagne and pretending she was nobody, accumulating nothing except debt and exhaustion. She thought about that moment in the crown room when she'd seen the watermark, when she'd felt her brain shift gears, felt herself become doctor. Lila Hart again, expert, scholar, someone who knew things that mattered. She thought about her mother, sedated in a facility in Queens, her memories dissolving like sugar in water, and nobody there to remember for her except Lila. She picked up her phone and dialed the number. It rang twice. Dr. Hart, Dante's voice, like he'd been waiting. I was hoping you'd call. Someone threatened my mother, Lila said. No preamble, no politeness, just the truth. Less than an hour after I left the plaza. They told me to forget what I saw, or they'd make me forget. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? She gave him her address. Stay there, Dante said. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but me. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Why would you sit? Because you work for me now, he said, and I protect what's mine. The line went dead. Lila stood in her kitchen, phone in hand, and wondered if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. Probably both. Probably there wasn't a difference anymore. She locked her door, made fresh tea, stared at her books, and tried not to think about how fast a life could change. 6 years to build invisibility. 6 hours to tear it down. Exactly 20 minutes later, someone knocked on her door. Lila looked through the peephole. Dante Moretti stood in her hallway, rain-soaked, flanked by 2 men who looked like they ate problems for breakfast. She opened the door. Dr. Hart, Dante said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. He looked around her apartment, taking in the books, the sparse furniture, the life stripped down to bare essentials. You're coming with me. Pack a bag. Essentials only. You won't be coming back here for a while. Excuse me? The people who threatened you? He turned to face her. They're serious. They're organized. And they're already moving on you. My people spotted surveillance on this building 20 minutes ago. Lila's blood ran cold. Surveillance? 2 cars, 4 men. They're waiting to see if you run or if you stay quiet. He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. 2 sedans parked down the block. Dark windows, no plates. If you stay quiet, they'll probably just watch you. Make sure you don't talk. But Dr. Hart, you struck me as someone who doesn't stay quiet. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. It's a fact, which is why you're coming with me. Now. Lila should have argued, should have asked questions, should have done anything except what she did, which was walk into her bedroom and start throwing clothes into a duffel bag. She packed fast, jeans, shirts, her laptop, phone charger, grabbed her mother's photo from the nightstand, the last picture taken before the diagnosis, when Louise Hart's smile still reached her eyes, stuffed it in the bag like she was stealing memories from her own life. When she emerged, Dante was leafing through her dissertation. Forgery and Authenticity in Spanish Colonial Documentation, Methods of Detection in the Pre-Modern Archive, he read aloud. Catchy title. It was more exciting than it sounds. I doubt that. He set the thesis down carefully. Ready? No, Lila said, but I don't think that matters. Smart woman, he gestured to his associates. Marco, take her bag. Tony, secure the exit. They moved like machines, efficient and silent. Lila followed them into the hallway, down the stairs instead of the elevator, through a service exit she'd never noticed before. A black SUV idled in the alley, windows tinted, engine running. "Get in," Dante said. Lila climbed in, the leather seats cold against her damp jeans. Dante slid in beside her, the doors locked with a heavy thunk. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere they won't look, at least not tonight." The SUV pulled away from her building, her life, her carefully maintained invisibility. Lila watched through the tinted windows as her apartment disappeared into the rain. 6 years. Gone. Just like that. "My mother," she said. "They threatened—" "I have people at Mount Sinai," Dante interrupted. "As of 30 minutes ago, your mother has 2 guards outside her door and 1 inside her room. Nobody gets near her without my permission." "You—" Lila's throat closed. "Why would you do that?" "Because you work for me now," Dante said again. "And because the people who threatened her made a mistake. They thought scaring you would make you quiet, but all they did was make me angry." The city blurred past. Rain hammered the roof. Somewhere behind them, 2 sedans probably realized their target was gone, probably started looking for her, probably wouldn't stop until they found her, or got found first. Lila had spent 6 years trying to disappear. Now she was sitting in an SUV with a man newspapers called alleged and suspected, running from people who'd threatened to hurt her mother, heading to somewhere safe that probably wasn't. And somehow, for the first time in 6 years, she felt awake. "Tell me about the forgeries," she said. Dante turned to look at her, rainlight reflected in his dark eyes. "What?" "You said this wasn't the first time someone tried to sell you fakes. Tell me about them. How many? When? What kind of pieces?" A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You're already working." "I need to understand what I'm dealing with," Lila said. "If someone's targeting you specifically, if they're good enough to fool your experts, then this isn't random. It's organized, deliberate, which means someone wants something from me," Dante finished. "And they're willing to bankrupt me to get it. Yes, Dr. Hart, I've reached the same conclusion." "So?" He studied her for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and tapped on the partition between them and the driver. "Take us to the archive." "The archive?" Lila asked. "Where I keep my collection," Dante said. $500 million in art, artifacts, and historical documents. Some legitimate, some apparently not. You want to understand what you're dealing with? I'll show you. The SUV turned onto the FDR, heading south into Manhattan's glittering heart. Lila watched the city scroll past, lights reflecting in the wet streets, late-night traffic, people living their normal lives while hers spun completely out of control. Her phone buzzed. Text from Marco. "Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." She typed back. "I think so. I'll explain later." If there was a later. If this didn't end with her face in tomorrow's headlines. Another unsolved Manhattan disappearance. "You're afraid," Dante said. "Not a question." "Terrified," Lila admitted. "Is that a problem?" "No, it's smart. The people I worry about are the ones who aren't afraid." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. 7 pieces, over the last 3 years. I bought 4 of them, paintings, mostly. 1 rare book, 1 set of Roman coins. The Cortez manuscript would have been the 7th. What happened to the other 3? I passed on them. The prices were too high, the provenance too clean. In my experience, when something seems too perfect, it usually is. "But you didn't pass on the ones you bought." "No," he admitted. "I didn't, which is why I need you, Dr. Hart. You see what I miss." The SUV pulled off the highway, winding through Tribeca's cobblestone streets. Old warehouse buildings converted into million-dollar lofts, galleries, wine bars. The kind of neighborhood where history and money fought for space. They stopped in front of a building that looked like all the others, red brick, arched windows, loading dock converted into a street-level entrance. The sign above the door read Moretti Import/Export in faded letters. Import/export, Lila said. "Really?" "Everyone needs a legitimate business," Dante replied. "Mine happens to be half legitimate." He led her through the entrance, past a security desk manned by someone who looked like they could bench press a car, into an elevator that required both a key card and a thumbprint. They descended, and kept descending. "How far down does this go?" Lila asked. "Far enough that nobody bothers us," Dante said. The elevator opened into a space that stole Lila's breath. It was huge, vault-like. The walls were exposed brick, the floors polished concrete, the lighting museum quality. And everywhere was art. Paintings in climate-controlled cases, sculptures on pedestals, glass cabinets filled with documents, books, artifacts. Row after row of human history, collected and curated and probably worth more than most countries' GDP. Lila couldn't find words. "This is incredible." "This is mine," Dante said simply. "Everything I've collected over 20 years. Everything I've fought for, bought, stolen, or inherited. My legacy." He walked further into the space, his footsteps echoing. "And somewhere in here, apparently, are pieces that don't belong. Pieces that someone very clever has been slipping past my experts. That's what you're going to find, Dr. Hart. You're going to tell me what's real and what's not. And then you're going to help me find out who's been lying to me." Lila moved deeper into the archive, her professional brain kicking into gear despite everything else. She could see immediately which pieces were recent acquisitions. They had newer cases, brighter lighting. She approached the first one, a painting. Renaissance era, or supposedly. A Madonna and Child, beautiful, serene. Wrong. She could see it in the crackling pattern on the surface. Too regular. Real aging was chaotic, random. This was artificial, accelerated. Good work, but not good enough. "This one," she said, pointing. Dante came to stand beside her. Lorenzo Lotto, authenticated by 3 experts, purchased 2 years ago for $8 million. "It's fake," Lila said. "The cracking is artificially induced, probably heated and cooled rapidly to create the effect. The pigments might be period appropriate, but the application is wrong. Look at the brushwork in the shadows. It's too smooth." Lotto had a distinctive technique, almost nervous in places. "This is too controlled." Dante stared at the painting like it had personally betrayed him. $8 million. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just find the others." So she did. Lila moved through the archive like a ghost, her trained eye catching details that didn't belong. A Roman coin with the wrong patina. A medieval manuscript with 19th century binding glue. A Greek vase with tool marks from a modern drill. 4 pieces total. 3 she found immediately. The 4th took longer, required pulling documentation, checking watermarks and chemical signatures in ways she hadn't done in 6 years. But she found it. By the time she finished, dawn was starting to break. Pale light filtered through high windows, cutting geometric shapes across the floor. Dante had watched her work in silence, making notes, taking photos, his expression getting darker with each piece she exposed. $14 million, he finally said, across 4 pieces. Plus the 12 I almost lost on the manuscript, $26 million. Someone's been bleeding me dry. Someone with access to your acquisition process, Lila added. Someone who knows your buying patterns, your budget ranges, your weaknesses. The pieces they targeted. They're all things you'd want. Things that fit your collection. Nothing random. Which means someone on the inside, Dante said quietly. Someone I trust. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lila's phone buzzed. Text from Mount Sinai. Your mother is awake. She's asking for you. Guilt crashed over her like a wave. Her mother was awake, alone, probably confused, and Lila was standing in an illegal archive with a crime boss hunting forgeries. I need to see her, Lila said. Not safe yet, Dante replied. Give me 24 hours. I'll make arrangements. She has Alzheimer's. She doesn't have 24 hours. Every day she forgets a little more. If I miss a visit, I might lose... Her voice cracked. I might lose her asking for me. I might lose her knowing who I am. Dante's expression softened, just for a moment. Tomorrow morning, he said. First thing, I'll take you myself. Promise? I promise. It would have to be enough. Lila looked back at the archive, at the forgeries she'd exposed, at the $500 million in art surrounding them like a fortress made of human achievement. What happens now? She asked. Now? Dante checked his watch. Now we figure out who's trying to destroy me. And then I return the favor. Sleep didn't come. Lila spent what was left of the night in a guest room 3 floors above the archive, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling while her brain refused to stop cataloging everything she'd seen. The paintings, the coins, the manuscripts, $26 million in forgeries, and those were just the ones she'd caught in 6 hours. How many more were hiding in that collection? How deep did this conspiracy go? Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, but she could feel it there, waiting. Like any second, it might light up with another threat, another demand to forget, another reminder that her old life was gone and this new one might kill her. At 6 a.m., she gave up on sleep. Showered in a bathroom bigger than her entire apartment had been. Found clothes someone had left for her, jeans that fit too well, a sweater that probably cost more than a month of her old salary. Everything in Dante's world fit too well, looked too expensive, felt like borrowed skin. She found him in the archive, right where she'd left him. He'd changed clothes, but his eyes had that hollowed-out look of someone who'd been awake just as long. Papers spread across a desk, photos, documents, the detritus of someone trying to solve a problem by sheer force of will. "You look terrible," Lila said. "You're one to talk." He didn't look up from whatever he was reading. "There's coffee in the corner. Help yourself." The coffee was good, too good, rich and dark, and probably imported from somewhere with better weather. Lila poured a cup and joined him at the desk. "Find anything?" she asked. "Nothing useful. The acquisition records for each fake showed different dealers, different authentication experts, different provenance chains. No obvious connection except me." He finally looked up. "Someone's covering their tracks." "Or multiple someones," Lila suggested. "This could be a network, different dealers working together, splitting the profits." "Possible." Dante leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "But that doesn't explain why. If this was just about money, they'd hit multiple collectors, spread the risk. Instead, they're focused on me, exclusively. Which brings us back to someone with a grudge. I have a lot of those." "I'm shocked," Lila said dryly. That almost got a smile. "Mount Sinai opens visiting hours at 7. We should leave soon." "Right." Her mother. The promise. Lila felt guilt twist in her stomach again. "You don't have to come with me." "Yes, I do. Until we know who's behind this, you don't go anywhere alone." He stood, gathering papers. "Besides, I made a promise." They took the same SUV from the night before, though in daylight it looked less menacing and more expensive. The leather seats, the tinted windows, the driver who hadn't said a single word but looked like he could kill someone with a paperclip if needed. Morning traffic clogged the streets, delivery trucks, early commuters, the city waking up to another day of not caring about Lila's problems. She watched it all through bulletproof glass, feeling disconnected from the world she used to inhabit. Yesterday she'd been part of that flow. Today she was separate, marked, different. "Tell me about her," Dante said suddenly. "Who?" "Your mother." Lila didn't want to talk about her mother. Didn't want to make Louise's heart real in this context, this world, this danger. But something in Dante's voice made her answer anyway. "She was a librarian," Lila said. "Queens Public Library, main branch. Worked there for 30 years. She could find any book, answer any question, remember every patron's name and what they liked to read." Her throat tightened. "Now she can't remember what she ate for breakfast. Can't remember my name half the time. Can't remember she has a daughter who'd burn the world down to keep her safe." "That's why you stayed invisible," Dante said. "Not just the money, the time. You needed to be close to her. Every extra hour mattered, still matters." Lila traced patterns on the window. "The doctors say she has maybe 2 years before she forgets everything, before she forgets me completely. So yeah, I served champagne and smiled at rich assholes and stayed invisible because those hours with her were worth more than my pride." "They still are." "Are they?" Lila turned to face him. "I exposed your forgery. Someone threatened her. Now I'm in an SUV with armed guards heading to see her with a crime boss as a chaperone. I'm not sure I made the right choice." "You made the only choice," Dante said. "Those people would have found you eventually. At least this way, you have protection. Your protection. Better than nothing." They pulled up to Mount Sinai just after 7. The memory care unit was on the 4th floor, past security and locked doors and nurses who knew Lila by sight. This morning they also knew Dante, or at least recognized the kind of man he was. Their smiles got tighter, their eyes got sharper. Nobody asked questions, but everyone was thinking them. Ms. Hart, Julia met them at the nurse's station. The kind nurse from last night, though she looked exhausted now. Your mother's in her room. She's been agitated this morning, asking for you repeatedly. I'm here now. And your friend? Julia's eyes slid to Dante, taking in the expensive suit, the cold eyes, the 2 men flanking him who radiated violence. He's with me, Lila said. It wasn't an explanation, but it would have to do. Her mother's room was at the end of the hall, small, clean, decorated with photos Lila had brought, pictures from before, when Louise Hart still smiled like she meant it. The woman in the bed didn't look like those photos anymore. Thinner, grayer, diminished in ways that had nothing to do with age. Mom? Louise's eyes opened, focused. For one horrible second, Lila saw no recognition there. Then something clicked. Lila. The name came out scratchy, unused. Where were you? I was calling for you. I'm sorry. But Lila crossed to the bed, taking her mother's hand. The bones felt fragile under papery skin. I'm here now. There were men here, Louise said. Her grip tightened. Strange men. They said they were protecting me, but I don't know them. I don't want them here. They're keeping you safe, Mom. Safe from what? Louise's eyes were sharp suddenly, clearer than they'd been in weeks. Lila, what have you done? Everything. Nothing. Made a choice that might have saved them or doomed them. Lila didn't know how to answer that. I found a new job, she said instead. Better pay. Better benefits. Enough to cover everything. What kind of job? Louise looked past Lila, spotting Dante standing in the doorway. Who is that? My employer, Lila said. Dante Moretti. He's a collector. I'm authenticating his art. Louise stared at Dante. Something flickered in her expression. Recognition, fear, knowledge. Even diminished, even losing herself piece by piece, she was still a librarian. Still someone who'd spent 30 years learning faces and names and the truth behind both. I know that name, she said quietly. I've read about you in newspapers. You're a businessman, Dante interrupted smoothly. Your daughter is very talented, Mrs. Hart. I'm fortunate to have her expertise. My daughter, Louise said, still holding Lila's hand, is too smart for her own good. Always has been. Gets it from her father. A pause. Confusion clouding her eyes again. Where's your father? He should be here. Dad's gone, Mom, remember? It's just us now. Gone where? Lila had answered this question 100 times. 1,000. Each time hurt the same. He passed away 10 years ago. Heart attack. Louise processed this like new information. Maybe it was. Maybe she'd forgotten. Maybe she'd remember again in an hour and have to grieve him fresh. That's what Alzheimer's was. An endless cycle of loss and relearning, every goodbye happening over and over. I'm tired, Louise said finally. Will you stay? For a bit? Lila sat with her mother holding her hand while Louise drifted in and out of sleep. Dante stayed in the doorway, not speaking, just present. One of his guards stood in the hall outside. The other had gone to check the floor, make sure the perimeter was secure, whatever that meant in a hospital. After an hour, Julia appeared with medication. Time for her morning pills, Ms. Hart. Lila stood reluctantly. I'll come back tonight. Will you? Louise's eyes open, lucid again. Or will you disappear? You've been disappearing lately. I forget you and then you're gone and I can't remember if you were ever real. The words landed like punches. Lila had to work to keep her voice steady. I'm real, Mom, and I'll be back. I promise. She left before Louise could ask for another promise she might not be able to keep. Dante followed her into the hall, neither of them speaking until they were back in the elevator heading down. She knows, Lila said. Knows what? Who you are. What you are. Lila leaned against the elevator wall. She's losing her memories, but not her judgment. She knows I've made a deal with someone dangerous. Does that change anything? No. Lila laughed, bitter and tired. I made my choice. I'm in this now, whatever this is. The elevator opened onto the lobby. Morning had progressed while they'd been upstairs. More visitors. More patients. More people living normal lives where the biggest threat was traffic or a missed deadline or whether they'd remembered to buy milk. Lila envied them. We need to move on the dealers, Dante said once they were back in the SUV. The ones who sold me the forgeries. Find out who they're working for. How? By asking nicely. His smile was cold. And then asking less nicely. They drove to Chelsea, to a gallery wedged between a wine bar and an overpriced furniture store. Prestigious. Expensive. The kind of place that sold paintings with five-figure price tags to people who matched their art to their couches. Alessandro Vitale owned the gallery. According to Dante's records, he'd sold 2 of the 4 forgeries, the fake Lotto painting and a set of Roman coins that turned out to be 19th century reproductions. Let me do the talking, Dante said as they approached the entrance. I wasn't planning on saying anything. Good, try to look intimidating. I'm a historian. The most intimidating thing I can do is cite sources. That actually got a real smile, brief but genuine. Then they were inside and his expression went cold again. The gallery was beautiful. High ceilings, white walls, carefully curated pieces that screamed taste and money. A receptionist sat at a minimalist desk, her smile professional until she saw Dante. Then it became fixed, plastic. Mr. Moretti, she said, we weren't expecting... Where's Alessandro? He's with a client. Not anymore. Dante walked past her desk, heading for the private viewing rooms and back. Lila followed, the guards following her, the receptionist making distressed noises behind them. Alessandro Vitale was exactly what Lila expected. Mid-50s, expensive suit, hair that had been carefully styled to look effortlessly disheveled. He stood in a viewing room with an older couple examining a contemporary abstract. His smile when he saw Dante was warm, welcoming, and completely fake. Dante! He excused himself from his clients, joining them in the hallway. What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming by. We need to talk, Dante said. Privately. Alessandro's smile faltered. He glanced at his clients, at Lila, at the guards, who radiated menace. Of course, let me just... Now. They moved to Alessandro's office, a room that managed to be both cluttered and meticulously organized. Art books, auction catalogs, provenance documents. The tools of his trade spread across every surface. Dante closed the door. The sound of it clicking shut felt final. The Lotto painting, Dante said without preamble. The one you sold me 2 years ago for $8 million. It's fake. Color drained from Alessandro's face. That's impossible. I had it authenticated by... I don't care who authenticated it. It's fake. My expert confirmed it. He gestured to Lila. Dr. Hart here spotted it in less than 5 minutes. So either you sold me a forgery knowingly or someone fooled you. Which is it? Alessandro looked between them, calculation happening behind his eyes. Dante, I would never... The provenance was solid. The authentication was... Answer the question. I didn't know. The words came fast, desperate. I swear I didn't know. The seller had documentation, expert verification, everything checked out. If it's fake, then they fooled me too. Who was the seller? A private collector, European. He'd inherited a collection, wanted to liquidate quietly. Name. I don't... Alessandro stopped at Dante's expression. Marcus Renfield, out of London. That's all I know. He came recommended by another dealer, provided all the documentation. Payment was clean. I had no reason to suspect. What dealer recommended him? Alessandro hesitated. That hesitation cost him. Dante moved fast, grabbing Alessandro by his expensive tie, slamming him against the wall. The impact rattled picture frames. What dealer? Victor! Alessandro gasped. Victor Moretti, your cousin. He vouched for Renfield, said the collection was legitimate. Dante, please. Dante let him go, stepped back. His expression had gone completely blank, which somehow seemed more dangerous than anger. Victor, he said quietly. Lila's brain kicked into gear. Your cousin sold you forgeries? He vouched for the dealer who sold me forgeries, Dante corrected. Not the same thing, but close enough. Alessandro had slid down the wall, loosening his tie with shaking hands. I didn't know, he said again. I swear I didn't know, Victor said. He said this was a favor, helping liquidate a family friend's estate. I trusted him. Everyone trusts Victor, Dante said. That's his best quality. He pulled out his phone, dialing. Someone answered on the first ring. Find Marcus Renfield, London. European art dealer, probably not his real name. I want his location, his real identity, and everyone he's worked with in the last 5 years, 24 hours. He hung up, turned back to Alessandro. The coins, Dante said. The Roman coins you sold me. Same dealer? Yes, same provenance story, same documentation. Alessandro was sweating now. Dante, I didn't mean to. If I'd known. You're done selling me anything, Dante cut him off. In fact, you're done selling anyone anything. I'm going to make some calls. By this time tomorrow, every serious collector in the city will know you can't spot a fake. Your reputation, your business, your career, gone. You can't. I can, and I will. Unless you do exactly what I tell you. Alessandro went very still. What do you want? Information. Every dealer Victor Moretti has recommended to you. Every piece he's helped authenticate. Every time his name came up in connection with a sale. All of it. You have until tonight. I'll need to check records. Then check them. Dante headed for the door. And Alessandro? If you warn Victor, if you tell anyone we had this conversation, if you do anything except exactly what I said, he paused. They won't find enough of you to identify. They left Alessandro trembling in his office and walked out through the gallery. The receptionist didn't try to stop them. The clients didn't ask questions. Everyone just watched them go, probably wondering if they should call the police and knowing they wouldn't. Back in the SUV, Lila found her voice. Your cousin is setting you up. Looks that way. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. Dante stared out the window at Chelsea's boutique-lined streets. Victor's wanted control of the family business for years. This is one way to get it. Bankrupt me with bad investments, make me look incompetent, wait for the family to lose faith, then step in as the responsible alternative. That's a long game. Victor's patient. Something dark crossed Dante's expression. Always has been. We grew up together. Same schools, same clubs, same expectations, except I inherited the business and he got a consultant position. He smiled, congratulated me, never showed a hint of jealousy. But he was. Dante's jaw tightened, and I was too stupid to see it. Lila watched him process this betrayal, this revelation. Family was supposed to mean something. Trust was supposed to matter. But Victor had spent years carefully, methodically destroying Dante's collection, and by extension his credibility and wealth, all while smiling. What happens now? She asked. Now we confirm it. Dante pulled out his phone again, scrolling through contacts. If Victor's behind this, there will be evidence, paper trails, communications. Somewhere he made a mistake. We just have to find it. And when we do? Dante looked at her. His eyes were cold again, empty. Then I deal with him. The way he said it made Lila's skin prickle. Deal with him, not confront, not expose. Deal with. She didn't ask what that meant, didn't want to know. She was already in too deep, already complicit, already past the point where she could pretend this was just about art. They spent the rest of the day in the archive pulling records, every acquisition from the last 5 years, every dealer contact, every authentication report, cross-referencing names, looking for patterns, building a case against someone who was family. Around 3 p.m., one of Dante's people arrived with lunch. Italian food from somewhere that smelled better than anything had a right to. They ate surrounded by $500 million in art, some real, some fake, all of it now tainted by suspicion. Tell me something, Lila said, picking at her pasta. Why collect? Why all of this? She gestured at the archive. What's the point? Dante considered the question. You spent 6 years in academia, probably dreamed of being surrounded by history forever. Then you had to walk away. How did that feel? Like losing a limb. That's why. He set down his fork. My family made their money in ways we don't discuss at dinner parties. Gambling, extortion, worse. I inherited that. Inherited the violence and the dirty money and the reputation. But this... He looked around at the paintings, the sculptures, the preserved fragments of human achievement. This is something beautiful, something lasting, something that makes me more than just another gangster. You collect legitimacy, Lila said slowly. I collect meaning. He stood, walking to a painting Lila had authenticated as genuine, a Dutch master, small and perfect. My grandfather was illiterate, couldn't read or write, but could break bones and collect debts. My father expanded the business, made millions, never read a book that wasn't about horse racing. And me? I wanted to be different, wanted to build something that mattered beyond fear and money. So you built this. So I built this. He touched the painting's frame gently, reverently. And now someone's trying to take it from me. Not just the money, the meaning. Making me look like a fool who can't tell real from fake. Destroying everything I've tried to become. Lila understood. She understood better than he probably realized. They'd both tried to build something beautiful from ugly circumstances. Her with her scholarship and research, him with his collection. Both of them reaching for meaning in a world that mostly offered chaos, and both of them watching it get dismantled by forces they couldn't control. We'll figure this out, she said. It was a promise she wasn't sure she could keep, but she made it anyway. Will we? Dante turned back to her. You've been here less than 24 hours, Dr. Hart. Already people have threatened you. Threatened your mother. Pulled you into a conspiracy that might get you killed. You could still walk away. Could I? No, he admitted. Probably not, but I'd let you try. That's almost sweet. I'm not sweet. I'm noticing that. Lila stood, joining him by the painting. But you keep your promises. You brought me to see my mother. You protected her. You're trying to do this right, even if your version of right is probably illegal in 6 different ways. 7, Dante corrected. At least. That startled a laugh out of her, real and unexpected and desperately needed. For just a moment, the weight lifted. Then reality came crashing back. Dante's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression hardening. Where? When? How many? He hung up, looked at Lila. We need to go, he said. Now. What happened? Someone just tried to break into your mother's hospital room. The world tilted. Lila's stomach dropped. Is she? She's fine. My guards stopped them. But Dr. Hart, this just escalated. He was already moving, grabbing his jacket. They're not trying to scare you anymore. They're trying to eliminate leverage. They're trying to kill her. Yes. Lila ran for the elevator. Dante and his guards followed. They burst out into the dying afternoon light, piling into the SUV. The driver already had the engine running. Mount Sinai, Dante barked. Fast! Traffic was a nightmare. Rush hour starting early, streets clogged with cars that weren't moving fast enough. Lila watched the city crawl past, every second in agony, imagining her mother alone and confused while someone tried to... She couldn't finish that thought, couldn't let herself go there. They won't get to her, Dante said, like he could read her mind. My people are with her. She's safe. For how long? Lila's voice cracked. How long before they try again? Before they succeed? I can't lose her like this. You won't. You can't promise that. No, Dante admitted. I can't, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to prevent it. They made it to Mount Sinai in 20 minutes that felt like hours. Lila was out of the SUV before it stopped moving, running through the lobby, past security, up the stairs because the elevator was too slow. Dante's voice behind her, calling her name, but she couldn't stop. Had to see her mother, had to know she was alive. The 4th floor hallway was chaos. Hospital security, police, nurses clustered at the station, and at the end of the hall, outside her mother's room, Dante's guards standing over 2 men in handcuffs. Julia saw Lila coming and intercepted her. She's okay, she said immediately. Your mother's okay. She slept through the whole thing. Lila's legs nearly gave out. What happened? 2 men tried to enter her room, said they were family. Your mother doesn't have any male relatives in the system, so our guards questioned them. They tried to force their way in and, well, Julia gestured at the handcuffed men. Your security stopped them. Lila pushed past her into the room. Her mother lay in bed, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that someone had just tried to hurt her, unaware of the danger, unaware that her daughter's choices had nearly gotten her killed. Lila sank into the chair beside the bed, taking her mother's hand. The guilt was crushing, overwhelming. This was her fault, all of it. She'd spoken up in that restaurant, and now her mother was a target. Now Louise's heart was in danger because Lila couldn't stay invisible. Dante appeared in the doorway. The police want a statement. What do I tell them? Nothing. I'll handle it. He paused. Dr. Hart, we can't keep her here. They found her once. They'll try again. Where else would she go? Lila's voice was hollow. This is the best facility in the city. She needs specialized care. I have a place, Dante said. Private facility. Outside the city. Top security, best medical staff money can buy. She'd be safe there. How private? The kind of private where we treat people who can't go to regular hospitals. People in my world who need discretion. A criminal hospital. He was offering to move her mother to a criminal hospital. No, Lila said immediately. Lila, I said no. I'm not putting my mother in some mobster hospital where people come to get bullet wounds treated off the books. It's not like that, isn't it? She stood facing him. You said it yourself, people in your world. Your world, Dante, not hers. She's a librarian. She's innocent. She doesn't belong in... She stopped, because Louise had opened her eyes, was looking at them both. Confusion clearing slowly from her expression. You're fighting, Louise said. About me? Mom, it's nothing. Don't lie to me. Louise struggled to sit up. Julia rushed in to help her, adjusting pillows. I heard enough. Someone tried to hurt me. Because of you. Because of whatever you're involved in. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Louise reached for Lila's hand. Listen to me. I'm sick. My brain is eating itself. Every day I lose more of who I was. But right now, in this moment, I'm still here, still me. And I'm telling you, if this man can keep me safe, let him. Mom, let him, Louise repeated. She looked at Dante. You'll protect her? My daughter. Yes, Dante said without hesitation. And you'll make the people who did this pay. I will. Louise nodded. Then take me wherever you need to. But Lila, you listen to me. You don't back down. You hear me? Whatever you started, you finish it. Don't let them make you invisible again. Tears burned Lila's eyes. I'm scared. Good. Smart people are scared. But they do it anyway. Louise squeezed her hand. You've been hiding for years, taking care of me, putting your life on hold. No more. You understand? No more hiding. It was the clearest her mother had been in months. Maybe the last time she'd be this clear. The knowledge of that hurt worse than anything. Okay, Lila whispered. Okay. Arrangements were made, paperwork signed, Dante's people coordinating with the hospital, with private transport, with a facility that would take Louise somewhere safe. It happened fast, efficient, like Dante's world always was. By nightfall, her mother was gone. Moved to a location Dante wouldn't tell her, secured by people whose names she didn't know, safe, hidden, protected. And Lila was alone with Dante Moretti and a conspiracy that had just tried to kill her mother. Alessandro sent the information, Dante said once they were back at the archive. He pulled up files on his computer. Every transaction connected to Victor, every piece he authenticated, every dealer he recommended. It's extensive. Lila looked at the screen, at the network of fraud spanning years. Dozens of transactions, millions of dollars, all connected by one man. He's been planning this for years, she said. At least 5, maybe longer. Dante's jaw was tight, and I never saw it. Never suspected. He's family. You trusted him. Trust his liability. He closed the laptop. I should have known better. What happens now? Dante stood, walking to the wall where the forgeries she'd found were now grouped together. The fake lotto, the reproduction coins, evidence of betrayal hanging in museum-quality cases. Now, he said quietly, I make a choice. I can report this. Go to the authorities. Let them handle it legally, or I can handle it myself. My way. What's your way? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Lila could see it in his eyes, the cold calculation, the violence waiting beneath the surface. Don't, she said. Don't what? Whatever you're thinking, don't. If you kill him, I didn't say anything about killing. You didn't have to. Lila moved closer. I know what you are, what you do, the world you come from. But if you kill your cousin over forgeries, over money, then you're proving everyone right. You're just another gangster, not someone collecting meaning, just someone collecting bodies. Dante turned to face her. He tried to have your mother killed. I know, and I want him to pay, but not like that. Not if it costs you everything you've built. It might cost me everything if I don't. They stood there, two people from different worlds, arguing about justice and revenge, and where the line between them lay. Outside, the city continued its eternal motion. Inside the archives, surrounded by art that was real and art that was fake, they tried to decide what kind of people they were going to be. Give me 3 days, Lila said finally. Let me build a case, real evidence, documentation that proves what Victor did. Then we take it to the authorities. Let the law handle it. Oh, the law is slow and stupid and can be bought. Maybe. But it's better than becoming what everyone thinks you are. Dante studied her for a long moment. You really believe that? I have to, Lila said. Otherwise, what's the point? What are we even fighting for? He was quiet. Then, 3 days. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Dr. Hart. 3 days might not be enough. And if it's not, if Victor moves first, if more people get hurt, then I do this my way. Fair enough? They worked through the night, building timelines, tracking forgeries, documenting every piece of Victor's conspiracy. Lila dove into research like she was back in grad school, chasing footnotes and primary sources, her brain finally doing what it was built for. Around 3 a.m., she found something. Dante, she said, look at this. He came to stand behind her, reading over her shoulder. What am I looking at? Payment records. From the dealer in London, Marcus Renfield. He wired money to an account in the Caymans. That account made deposits to 3 different galleries in New York. Small amounts. Irregular intervals. But consistent over 5 years. Kickbacks. Exactly. And look who controls that Cayman account. She pulled up the banking records, the shell company formation documents, the paper trail that led back to one name. Victor Moretti. Got him, Lila breathed. Maybe. Dante studied the documents. This proves he was receiving money from Renfield. Doesn't prove he knew the pieces were fake. It's a start. And if we keep digging... Dante's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression shifting from tired to alert. How many? He asked. When? He hung up, looked at Lila. We're out of time, he said. Victor just called a family meeting, tomorrow night. Emergency session to discuss concerns about my leadership and recent financial losses. He's making his move. Can you stop it? Not without proof. Real, undeniable proof that he's been sabotaging me. Dante grabbed his jacket. Which means we have less than 24 hours to finish this. That's not enough time. Then we'd better work fast. They did. The next 23 hours blurred together in a haze of documents, phone calls, and desperate research. Lila barely slept, barely ate, just kept digging, kept searching, kept building their case piece by piece, and slowly it came together. Victor's conspiracy wasn't just about forgeries. It was bigger, more complex. He'd been systematically undermining Dante for years. Bad investments he'd recommended, deals that had mysteriously fallen through, allies who'd suddenly become enemies. The forgeries were just one piece of a larger plan to make Dante look incompetent, to make the family lose faith. By 6 p.m., they had enough. Not perfect, not airtight, but enough to expose Victor. Enough to show the family who the real problem was. Will they believe it? Lila asked. They'll have to, Dante said, because if they don't, this ends badly for everyone. The family meeting was at the estate on Long Island, a mansion that had been in the Moretti family for 3 generations, where decisions got made and sometimes people disappeared. Lila wasn't invited, wasn't supposed to come, but Dante insisted. You found the evidence, he said. You tell the story. I'm not family. You're my expert, my witness. My proof that I'm not paranoid or incompetent. You're coming." So she came. Wearing clothes someone had provided, professional but not too formal, expensive but not flashy, armor made of wool and good tailoring. The estate was everything she expected. Old money trying to look older, marble and mahogany, and the kind of art that screamed wealth. 20 people gathered in a dining room that could seat 50. Men mostly. A few women, all of them looking at Dante like he was already guilty. And in the center of it all, sitting at the head of the table like he already owned it, was Victor Moretti. He looked like Dante. Same dark eyes, same sharp features. But where Dante was controlled violence, Victor was calculated charm. He smiled when they entered, warm, welcoming, concerned. "Dante," he said, "thank you for coming. And who's this?" "Dr. Lila Hart," Dante said, "my authentication expert, the one who's been exposing your forgeries." The room went silent. Victor's smile never wavered. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me." Dante set his briefcase on the table. "For the last 5 years you've been selling me forgeries. Expensive ones. $26 million worth. All part of a plan to bankrupt me, destroy my credibility, and take control of the family business." "That's insane," Victor said, but his eyes had sharpened. "Dante, you're exhausted, paranoid. These recent losses have clearly affected your judgment. "Show them," Dante said to Lila. She opened the briefcase, pulled out the documents they'd compiled, the evidence they'd gathered, spread it across the table like accusations made paper. 5 years ago, Lila began, her voice steadier than she felt, a dealer named Marcus Renfield began approaching Mr. Moretti with historically significant pieces. Paintings, manuscripts, artifacts, all authenticated by reputable experts, all recommended by his cousin Victor. She walked them through it, the forgeries, the paper trail, the Cayman accounts. Every piece of evidence laid out in academic precision. The family listened, some skeptical, some shocked, Victor sitting there with his smile frozen in place. "This proves nothing," he said when she finished. "Circumstantial evidence. Coincidences. I recommended dealers I thought were legitimate. If they sold Dante forgeries, I'm as much a victim as he is." "Are you?" Lila pulled out one more document, the one she'd found at 4 a.m. that morning, buried in offshore banking records. "This is a transfer from Renfield to your account, made 2 days before Dante purchased the fake lotto painting. The exact amount Renfield received minus a 20% commission." She slid it across the table. "You weren't a victim, Mr. Moretti. You were the mastermind." Victor's smile finally cracked. Just for a second. Then it was back, but different now. Harder. Meaner. "Clever," he said softly. "Very clever. I underestimated you, Dr. Hart." "People usually do," Lila replied, "but not clever enough." Victor stood. "Yes, I sold Dante forgeries. Yes, I've been working to expose his incompetence. But why? Because he's been running this family into the ground, making us weak, turning us legitimate when we should embrace what we are." "What we are is better than you," Dante said quietly. "We're criminals." Victor's composure shattered. "We're gangsters, Dante. We always have been. But you wanted to play collector, wanted to pretend we're something we're not. So yes, I exposed you, showed everyone that your precious art collection is a joke, that you can't tell real from fake, that you're not fit to lead." The room had gone silent again. Everyone watching, waiting. "You're done, Victor," Dante said. "The evidence is clear. The family will vote, and you'll lose." "Will I?" Victor looked around the table. "Or will they remember that I'm right, that we're stronger when we stop pretending?" For a long moment, nobody spoke. Lila could feel the weight of decision pressing down, could see the family calculating, choosing sides, deciding which Moretti to follow. Then the oldest man at the table, Dante's uncle, the family patriarch, stood. "The vote," he said. "All in favor of removing Victor from his position and investigating his actions." Hands rose, not all of them, but enough. Victor stared at the raised hands, at the family choosing Dante, choosing legitimacy over violence. "You'll regret this," he said. "All of you." "Probably," Dante replied, "but we'll regret it together." Victor left, just walked out, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Nobody stopped him. Nobody followed. He was alone now, cast out. Lila expected to feel triumph, victory, something. Instead, she just felt tired. The meeting ended. The family dispersed. Dante's uncle approached them, his expression unreadable. "You did well," he said to Lila. "The evidence was convincing." "Thank you. But this isn't over. Victor won't just disappear. He'll fight back, violently." "I know," Dante said. "You'd better be ready." They left the estate as night fell, drove back to the city in silence. Lila watched lights blur past, processing everything that had happened. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now?" Dante stared out the window. "Now we wait for Victor to make his move. Because he will. He's lost everything, which makes him desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. The most dangerous." They reached the archive after midnight. The building was dark, quiet, peaceful in a way that felt temporary, like the calm before something terrible. Dante walked Lila to the guest room, stopped at the door. "Thank you," he said, "for tonight, for the evidence, for everything." "I didn't do it for you," Lila replied. "I did it because it was right." "I know, that's why it mattered." He left her there. Lila closed the door and collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. She'd done it, built a case, exposed Victor, saved Dante's reputation. But her uncle was right. This wasn't over. Victor was out there, angry and humiliated and dangerous. And Lila had no idea what came next. Sleep came in fragments. Lila would drift off, then jerk awake at phantom sounds. Footsteps that weren't there, doors opening that stayed closed. Threats that existed only in her exhausted brain. By 4 a.m., she gave up entirely and sat by the window, watching the city's pre-dawn darkness, thinking about Victor's face when he'd walked out of that dining room. Fury and humiliation written in every line. People like that didn't just accept defeat. They metastasized. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Your mother asked about you this morning. Asked if you were safe. I told her you were. Don't make me a liar. No signature." But it had to be from wherever Dante had hidden Louise. The private facility he wouldn't name. At least they were letting her mother ask questions. At least Louise still remembered having a daughter to worry about. Lila typed back, "Tell her I'm fine. Tell her I love her." Then, after a pause, "Is she really okay?" The response came immediately. "She's comfortable. Confused sometimes, but that's normal. The doctor says her decline hasn't accelerated. You did the right thing." The right thing. Lila stared at those words until they stopped making sense. The right thing had gotten her mother threatened, nearly killed, and stashed in some criminal hospital. The right thing had dragged Lila into a world where family meetings ended with exile and people talked about violence like it was weather. But Louise was alive, safe. That had to count for something. She was still sitting there when Dante knocked on her door at 6 a.m. He looked as exhausted as she felt, suit rumpled, eyes hollow. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Didn't try." He handed her a coffee. "We need to talk." They went to the archive, that underground vault of art and lies. Someone had cleaned up from their marathon research session. The documents were filed, the coffee cups gone, everything back to its museum-perfect state, like last night had never happened. "Victor's disappeared," Dante said without preamble. "Left his apartment, left the city. My people can't find him." Lila's stomach dropped. "That's bad. That's very bad. Men like Victor don't run unless they're planning something. And when they come back with fire. Maybe he just left, accepted defeat." Dante gave her a look that said she should know better. Victor's been planning this takedown for 5 years. Built an entire forgery network, recruited dealers, bribed experts, created false provenances. That's not someone who accepts defeat. That's someone who always has a backup plan. So what do? We assume he's coming for us. Prepare accordingly. Dante pulled out his phone, showing her a schematic. "This building has 3 exits, all monitored. Security cameras on every floor. Armed guards rotating every 6 hours. You stay here. You're safe." "For how long?" "Until we find Victor. Or until he finds us. Lila looked around the archive. $500 million in art, now serving as her prison. Beautiful, suffocating. I can't just hide down here. You can and you will. Dr. Hart, Victor knows you're the one who exposed him. You're a target now. Possibly the primary target. Because I'm easier to kill than you? Because killing you sends a message. Shows I can't protect my own people. Undermines my authority. Makes the family question whether I'm still strong enough to lead. Dante's jaw tightened. He'll come for you first. I'm sure of it. The coffee turned to acid in Lila's stomach. This is insane. This whole situation, I authenticated some art. I shouldn't be worried about assassination. You stepped into my world. This is what my world looks like. Then your world is broken. I know. He said it quietly, simply, like admitting something he'd known for years. I've spent 20 years trying to fix it, make it better, more legitimate. But men like Victor will always exist, will always choose violence over evolution. Is that why you collect? Lila gestured at the art surrounding them. Trying to build something that isn't broken? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a gangster with expensive taste. Dante moved to the fake lotto painting, still hanging in its case like evidence. My grandfather killed people. My father killed people. I've killed people. We can surround ourselves with beauty, pretend we're cultured, but the blood doesn't wash off. You're not your grandfather, aren't I? He turned to face her. Last night I wanted to kill Victor, not arrest him, not expose him, kill him, put a bullet in his head and dump him in the Hudson. You talked me out of it. But Doctor, Hart, if he comes after you, if he hurts you, I won't hesitate. The words should have scared her. Instead, they settled over her like a blanket. Protection and threat wrapped together. This was who Dante Moretti was, a man who collected Renaissance paintings and planned murders with equal precision. I need to work, Lila said, changing the subject because she didn't know how to respond. If I'm stuck down here, I might as well authenticate the rest of your collection. Figure out what else Victor poisoned. You don't have to. I do. I need to do something useful, or I'll lose my mind. Dante studied her for a moment, then nodded. I'll have everything brought down. Documentation, provenance records, authentication reports. All of it. He left her there. Lila spent the next several hours doing what she did best, analyzing, cataloging, spotting the tiny inconsistencies that separated genuine from fake. It was meditative, safe, the kind of work where the biggest danger was a paper cut. By noon, she'd found 3 more forgeries. A Byzantine icon with 20th century gold leaf, a medieval manuscript with paper from the wrong century, a Greek statue with tool marks from a modern chisel. Victor's conspiracy went deeper than they'd thought. Dozens of pieces over the years, each one carefully selected to appeal to Dante's taste, while slowly bleeding his collection dry. He was systematic, Lila muttered, making notes. This wasn't just about money, it was about humiliation, making you look like an idiot who couldn't tell real from fake. He succeeded. Dante's voice came from behind her. He'd returned with lunch, Thai food that smelled like heaven. How many now? 7 confirmed fakes. 3 more suspicious, and I'm only halfway through. Lila accepted the food gratefully. If this pattern holds, you might have 20 or 30 forgeries in here. Maybe more. Millions of dollars. At least. But Dante, that's not the worst part. She pulled up her notes. Look at the acquisition dates. The pieces get more expensive over time. More historically significant. Victor wasn't just scamming you. He was building to something. Each forgery a little bolder, a little riskier, like he was testing how far he could push before you noticed. Until you noticed. Until I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Lila ate mechanically, her brain still processing patterns. The Cortez manuscript would have been his masterpiece. $12 million for a single piece. If you'd bought it, if nobody had caught it, that would have been the pinnacle. His ultimate proof that you were incompetent. And then he'd have moved against me officially, called for a vote, used the forgeries as evidence. Dante sat down heavily. He planned this perfectly. Except he didn't account for a broke historian serving champagne. That got almost a smile. Lucky me. They ate in silence for a while. The archive felt smaller somehow, more claustrophobic. Lila kept glancing at the exits, expecting Victor to appear with a gun and that charming smile. "Tell me something," she said finally. "The art, your collection, is any of this actually legitimate, or is it all just money laundering and tax fraud?" "About 60% is legitimate, purchased through proper channels, documented correctly. The other 40%, he shrugged. Gray area, pieces that fell off trucks, items with unclear ownership, things that technically belong in museums but ended up here instead." "So you're a thief." "I'm a collector with flexible morals." "There's a difference?" "In my world? Not really." Dante stood, pacing. "But every piece I have, legitimate or not, I appreciate. I study them. I protect them. They're not just investments. They're—" "Meaning," Lila finished. "You said that before. You're collecting meaning." "Yes, and Victor tried to turn that into a joke. Fill my collection with fakes until nothing meant anything anymore." His hands clenched. "That's what I can't forgive. Not the money. The mockery." Lila understood that. She'd spent 6 years invisible, her expertise wasted, her passion buried under financial necessity. When you built your identity around something, scholarship, art, meaning, having it mocked was worse than having it stolen. Her phone rang. The facility where her mother was staying. "Ms. Hart?" A woman's voice. Professional. Careful. "This is Dr. Chen. We've been treating your mother." Lila's heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's stable. But we had an incident this morning. Someone tried to access her floor. A man claiming to be family. Our security stopped him. But Ms. Hart, this facility is discreet, not fortified. If someone's actively hunting for her—" "We'll move her," Lila said immediately. "Somewhere safer." "I'll arrange it," Dante said. He'd already pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "Dr. Chen, this is Dante Moretti. I'm sending a team to transfer the patient within the hour. Full security detail. Where we're taking her, nobody will find her. Mr. Moretti, our facility has protocols. Your protocols almost got her killed. My way, or she's dead by morning. Choose." Silence on the other end. Then, 1 hour. Have your people check in at the security desk." Dante hung up. Made 3 more calls in rapid succession, his voice clipped and efficient. Military precision applied to protecting a librarian with Alzheimer's. "They found her," Lila said. Her voice sounded far away. "Victor's people found my mother. We knew they would eventually. That's why we're moving her." Dante grabbed his jacket. "Pack a bag. You're coming with me." "Where?" "To get your mother. Then to somewhere Victor can't reach. A place even I don't use unless things are desperate." "How desperate are we talking?" "Very." They left within minutes. The SUV was waiting, different driver, same black-tinted windows. Lila watched the city scroll past, buildings and people and normal life happening while hers spiraled into chaos. The facility was in Westchester, expensive, isolated, the kind of place where people with secrets came to heal. They pulled up to find Dante's security team already there, 3 cars forming a perimeter, men who looked like they ate danger for breakfast. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, young, professional, clearly uncomfortable with the armed men in her parking lot. "Your mother is ready," she said to Lila. "We've given her a mild sedative for the transport. She was agitated, kept asking about you." Guilt twisted Lila's stomach. "Can I see her?" "Of course." Louise Hart sat in a wheelchair, dressed in comfortable clothes someone had provided, looking small and confused. Her eyes found Lila and focused. "Baby," she said. The sedative made her voice slow. "You're here." "I'm here, Mom." Lila knelt beside the wheelchair. "We're going somewhere safe, somewhere better." "Safe from what?" "From your daughter's choices. From men who turn family into weapons. From consequences you didn't earn." "Just safe, I promise." Louise's hand found Lila's cheek. "You look tired. Are you eating enough?" "I'm eating fine." "Liar. You always forget to eat when you're worried." Louise's eyes drifted past Lila to where Dante stood. "That's him. The dangerous one." "Yes." "He'll protect you?" "He will." "Good." Louise's head drooped, the sedative pulling her under. "Don't let them make you invisible again, baby. Don't hide." Then she was asleep, head lolling against the wheelchair. Lila stood, blinking back tears. "Let's go," Dante said gently. They loaded Louise into a specially equipped van. Medical equipment, monitors, a nurse who climbed in to keep watch. Lila wanted to ride with her mother, but Dante insisted she stay in the SUV. "If they hit us, they'll hit the obvious target first. Your mother's safer if you're not with her." "You're using her as bait." "I'm using strategy. There's a difference." "Is there?" They didn't argue further. The convoy pulled out, 2 SUVs, the medical van, and a chase car bringing up the rear. Driving north on highways that got progressively emptier, more rural. Trees replacing buildings, space replacing claustrophobia. "Where are we going?" Lila asked. "A safe house, upstate, off the books. Only 5 people know it exists." Dante was watching the mirrors, tense. If Victor found the first facility, he has resources I didn't anticipate. Someone feeding him information. This place, nobody knows about except people I'd trust with my life. And me. And you. They drove for 2 hours. Past towns that looked like postcards. Past farms and forests and the kind of landscape that probably appeared in tourism brochures. The safe house turned out to be a converted hunting lodge, all wood and stone and isolation. Beautiful in a stark way. More security here. Perimeter cameras. Guards who materialized from the tree line like ghosts. The medical van backed up to a ramp, and they transferred Louise inside with professional efficiency. The lodge interior was surprisingly comfortable. Rustic, but not rough. Someone had set up a medical suite in what used to be a bedroom, hospital bed, monitoring equipment, everything Louise might need. "This is temporary," Dante said as they got Louise settled. "Few days at most, just until we neutralize the threat." "Neutralize," Lila repeated. "That's a nice word for murder. I prefer permanent solution." "Of course you do." The nurse, her name was Patricia, middle-aged and efficient, got Louise hooked up to monitors. Blood pressure, heart rate. Everything stable. The sedative would wear off in a few hours. Lila sank into a chair beside the bed. Exhaustion crashed over her like a physical weight. She'd slept maybe 4 hours in the last 48, eaten 1 proper meal, run on adrenaline and coffee, and the desperate need to keep moving, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling, and feeling meant falling apart. "You should rest," Dante said from the doorway. "Can't. Need to stay with her. Patricia's here. Your mother's safe. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." He was right, but Lila couldn't make herself move. Couldn't leave her mother alone again. Every time she left, something terrible happened. If she just stayed, if she just kept watching. "Dr. Hart," Dante's voice was gentler now. 5 hours. That's all I'm asking. Sleep for 5 hours. Then you can come back and watch over her all you want." "What if Victor doesn't know about this place? And if he somehow finds it, he'll have to get through 12 armed guards and me. Your mother is safer than the president right now." Lila looked at Louise, sleeping peacefully, monitors beeping their steady rhythm. Looked at Patricia, who nodded reassuringly. Looked at Dante, who was watching her with something that might have been concern. 5 hours, she agreed finally. He showed her to a guest room down the hall. Simple. Clean. A bed that looked like heaven. Lila sat on the edge, intending to just rest her eyes for a moment. She woke to darkness and the smell of smoke. Not in the room. Somewhere else. But close. Too close. Lila stumbled to her feet, brain fogged with sleep, trying to understand what was happening. The smoke alarm was screaming, footsteps running, shouting. She opened the door to chaos. The hallway filled with smoke. Not thick yet, but getting there. Down the stairs, she could see orange light flickering. Fire. The lodge was on fire. "Mom!" Lila ran toward Louise's room, found Dante and Patricia already there, preparing to move her. Louise was awake now, confused and frightened. "What's happening?" Louise clutched Patricia's arm. "I smell smoke." "Fire, Mom, we need to go." Lila helped lift Louise into the wheelchair. Her mother felt too light, too fragile. "Fire? How?" "Not now." Dante was at the window, looking out. His expression made Lila's blood run cold. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind with guns." He pulled the curtain back enough for Lila to see. The tree line was lit up with muzzle flashes. The guards who'd been patrolling were pinned down, returning fire. And in the driveway, blocking their vehicles, were two trucks that hadn't been there before. "Victor," Lila breathed. "Victor," Dante confirmed. "He found us. And he brought friends." The smoke was getting thicker. Lila could hear the fire now, crackling somewhere below. They had minutes at best before the whole lodge became an inferno. "Back exit," Patricia said, voice steady despite the circumstances. "Through the kitchen. I scouted it when we arrived." Smart woman. Dante pulled a gun from somewhere under his jacket. When had he started carrying a gun? "Stay behind me. Stay low. If I tell you to run, you run and don't look back." They moved as fast as the wheelchair allowed. Through the smoke-filled hallway, down a back staircase. The heat was intense now, overwhelming. Lila's eyes watered. Louise was coughing, Patricia holding an oxygen mask to her face. The kitchen was engulfed. Flames eating the walls, the ceiling. No way through, no way out. "Window," Dante said. He grabbed a chair, smashed out the glass. The night air rushed in, cool and clean and full of gunfire. They were trapped. Fire behind them. Victor's people outside. And Louise, fragile and frightened, caught between. "We're going anyway," Dante said. He helped Patricia lift Louise from the wheelchair. "Kitchen's a loss. We go through the window, across the back porch, into the woods. My people will cover us." "That's insane," Lila said. "You have a better plan?" She didn't. They didn't have any plan except survive the next 5 minutes and pray for 5 more after that. Dante went first, gun drawn, scanning the night. Then Patricia, carefully handing Louise through the window. Then Lila, glass crunching under her feet, smoke pouring out behind them. The porch was exposed, too exposed. Lila could see Victor's men advancing, using the trucks as cover. Could see Dante's guards fighting back, outnumbered, but holding. Could see the lodge burning behind them, collapsing in on itself. "Go!" Dante fired 3 shots. Someone screamed, "Move!" They ran. Patricia half carrying Louise, Lila supporting her mother's other side, Dante laying down cover fire, bullets tearing up the ground around them, the tree line impossibly far away. They almost made it. The shot came from somewhere in the dark. Close. Too close. Lila felt something tug at her jacket. Felt heat. Then Patricia stumbled. "I'm hit," she said, surprised. "I think I'm—" She went down. Blood spreading across her shoulder. Dark and wet and wrong. "Patricia!" Lila dropped to her knees. Pressure. She needed pressure on the wound. Her hands came away red. "Leave me," Patricia gasped. "Get her to safety." "I'm not leaving school. Now!" Dante grabbed Lila's arm, pulling her up. "We can't help her if we're dead." Another shot. This one hit a tree inches from Lila's head. Bark exploded. Dante returned fire. Someone else went down. But there were more. Always more. Victor had brought an army. "Take your mother," Dante said. "Get to the tree line. Follow the path north. There's a cabin about a mile out. Lock yourself in and don't come out until I come for you." "What are you—" "Buying you time." He shoved Louise toward Lila. "Go!" Lila wanted to argue, wanted to stay, wanted to do anything except run while people died to protect them. But Louise was clinging to her, terrified and confused, and Dante was right. They couldn't help anyone if they were dead. So she ran. Carrying her mother wasn't easy. Louise had lost weight, but she was still dead weight, sedative lingering in her system, legs not working right. Lila half-dragged, half-carried her into the trees while the gunfire continued behind them. The forest was dark. Branches grabbed at them. Roots tried to trip them. Lila's lungs burned. Her arms screamed. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying. Behind them, the gunfire was getting more sporadic. Either Dante's people were winning or they were dying. No way to know. No time to look back. "Lila," Louise whispered. "What's happening?" "We're going somewhere safe, Mom. Just hold on." "I'm scared." "I know. Me too." The path appeared like a miracle. Barely visible, probably used by deer more than people, but heading north like Dante said. Lila followed it blindly, praying it led to the cabin, praying Dante was still alive, praying for a future where her mother didn't die in the woods because her daughter had seen a watermark on a manuscript. The cabin materialized from the darkness. Small, rough, but solid. Lila practically fell against the door, fumbling for a handle. It opened easily. No lock? Who needed locks this far from civilization? Inside was basic. One room, a cot, some supplies. Meant for emergencies, and this definitely qualified. Lila got Louise onto the cot, then turned to barricade the door. A table, a chair. Everything she could move piled against the entrance. Then she collapsed. Her hands were shaking. Her clothes were covered in Patricia's blood. Her mother was crying softly, curled on the cot, asking for her father who'd been dead 10 years. And somewhere behind them, Dante Moretti was fighting her battles while she hid in a cabin like a coward. "I'm sorry," Lila whispered. She didn't know who she was apologizing to. Her mother, Dante, Patricia, herself. "I'm so sorry." Louise reached out, found Lila's hand. Her grip was weak but determined. "Don't cry, baby. We're okay. We're together." Were they okay? Lila didn't know. Didn't know if Dante was alive. Didn't know if Victor's people were coming. Didn't know anything except that she'd made choices and people were dying for them. Time passed. Minutes or hours, Lila couldn't tell. She sat on the floor holding her mother's hand, listening for footsteps that might be rescue or might be death. When the knock finally came, she nearly screamed. "Dr. Hart," Dante's voice, rough, exhausted. "It's me. Open up." Lila moved the barricade with shaking hands. Dante stumbled inside, and Lila could see he was hurt. Blood on his shoulder, his face, walking with a limp. "You're alive," she said stupidly. "Barely." He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Victor's people are dead or scattered. My guards are securing the perimeter. But Dr. Hart, we can't stay here. Victor knows the general area now. He'll send more people. Patricia, being airlifted to a hospital. She'll live. Lost a lot of blood, but she'll live." Thanks something, at least that. "What now?" "Now we end this." Dante's eyes were cold, dead. "I gave Victor a chance. Gave him the benefit of law and evidence. He responded with fire and bullets. No more chances. No more playing by rules he ignores. Dante, he tried to kill your mother. Kill you. Burn us alive. I'm done being civilized." He pulled out his phone, made a call. "It's me. Find Victor Moretti. I don't care where he is or who's protecting him. Find him and bring him to me." He hung up, looked at Lila. 3 days you asked for. I gave you 3 days. Now we do this my way." Lila wanted to argue, wanted to say violence wasn't the answer. But her hands were still covered in Patricia's blood, and her mother was traumatized, and somewhere out there Victor was planning his next attack. Maybe Dante's way was the only way. Maybe in this world, civilization was just a pretty word for weakness. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "Stay alive. Keep your mother safe. Let me handle the rest. And if you die handling it, then you run. Take your mother and disappear. I've set up accounts, access codes, everything you need to vanish completely." He pulled out a piece of paper, pressed it into her hand. "But Dr. Hart, I don't plan on dying. Nobody ever does." "True," he smiled, grim and terrible. "But I'm better at not dying than most." He left her there, disappeared back into the night to hunt his cousin, to end this the old way, the bloody way. Lila sat with her mother and waited for dawn. Waited to find out if she'd be celebrating or running. Waited to learn if choosing truth over fear had saved them or doomed them. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, Dante Moretti went to war. Dawn came slow and gray, light filtering through the cabin's single grimy window like it wasn't sure it was welcome. Lila hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every sound outside made her flinch, wind through trees or footsteps, impossible to tell. Her mother had finally passed out around 3 a.m., exhaustion winning over fear. Now Louise lay on the cot, breathing shallow and uneven, looking older than she had any right to. Lila's phone had died hours ago. No way to know what was happening. If Dante was alive, if Victor had won, if she should be running or waiting or making peace with whatever came through that door next. The knock at 7:30 nearly stopped her heart. "Dr. Hart." Not Dante's voice, someone younger. "It's Marco. from Dante's security team. I'm coming in. Lila moved the barricade with stiff hands. The door opened to reveal a man in his 20s, baby-faced despite the tactical gear and the rifle slung over his shoulder. He looked exhausted and wired at the same time, like he'd been running on adrenaline so long his body forgot how to function without it. Is Dante... Lila couldn't finish the question. Alive. Hurt, but alive. He sent me to get you. Marco glanced at Louise. Both of you. We have a car waiting. Where are we going? The city. Dante's calling a meeting. Final one, with the whole family. Marco's expression was grim. He found Victor. The words settled over Lila like ice water. Is Victor? Alive, for now. Marco checked his watch. But we need to move. Meeting's in 4 hours and we're 2 hours out. They got Louise into the car. A different SUV, cleaner, nobody's blood on the seats. The drive back to Manhattan felt surreal. They passed the burned-out lodge, or what was left of it, smoke still rising from the ruins. Police cars and fire trucks cluttered the driveway. Someone would have questions eventually, probably a lot of questions. What's the story? Lila asked Marco. Gas leak. Tragic accident. The owner, Mr. Moretti, is devastated but grateful everyone survived. Marco didn't even smile at the lie. Patricia's listed as injured evacuating the property. Nothing about the gunfight. And the bodies? What bodies? Right, of course. In Dante's world, bodies just disappeared. Problems got solved quietly. Truth was negotiable. Louise woke halfway through the drive, looked around confused, trying to place herself. Are we going home? Not yet, Mom. Soon. Another lie to add to the collection. I don't like this, Louise said softly. Any of this. I want my apartment, my books. I want things to make sense again. I know. Lila took her mother's hand. I'm sorry. You keep apologizing. Stop it. Whatever's happening, it's not your fault. Except it was. Every bit of this was Lila's fault. She'd spoken up in that restaurant, exposed the forgery, set everything in motion. If she'd just stayed invisible like she'd learned to, none of this would have happened. But her mother would still be disappearing piece by piece, and Lila would still be serving champagne to people who didn't see her, and nothing would have changed except everything would have stayed broken. They reached the city by 10 a.m. Not the archive this time. A different building in the financial district, older and more imposing. The family's actual headquarters, Marco explained, where the real business happened, where decisions got made that newspapers only heard about months later in vague terms. Inside was corporate elegant, marble floors, expensive art that was probably legitimate, conference rooms and offices that could have belonged to any investment firm except for the men stationed at every corner who looked like they ate problems. Marco led them to a private suite on the top floor, medical equipment already set up, a doctor waiting, older woman, professional, clearly used to treating people who couldn't go to regular hospitals. Mrs. Hart, the doctor said gently, I'm Dr. Reeves. I'm going to examine you, make sure everything's okay after last night. Louise looked at Lila. Will you stay? Always. The examination took 30 minutes, blood pressure elevated but stable. Some minor smoke inhalation. Bruising from being carried, nothing requiring hospitalization. Doctor. Reeves prescribed rest and monitoring, then left them alone. I need to check on Dante, Lila said. Will you be okay here for a bit? I'm not a child, Louise replied, but her hand tightened on Lila's. But yes, go, just come back. Lila found Marco outside. Where is he? 3rd floor, conference room A. But Dr. Hart, Marco hesitated. He's not in a good place right now. What happened last night, finding Victor, whatever went down, he's different, colder. I can handle cold. Marco didn't look convinced, but he led her downstairs anyway. The conference room was at the end of a hallway that felt too long. Lila could hear voices inside, arguing, Dante's cutting through the noise. She knocked. The voices stopped. Come in, Dante said. The room was full. 20 people at least, the same faces from the Long Island meeting plus more. The family assembled. And at the head of the table, looking like he'd been through a war, was Dante Moretti. Marco hadn't been wrong. He looked different. Bandage visible under his collar. bruising on his face, but mostly it was his eyes, flat, empty, the look of someone who'd crossed a line and couldn't find their way back. "Dr. Hart," he said. "Your mother? Safe? Stable?" Lila stepped into the room, feeling 24 pairs of eyes on her. "Where's Victor?" "Secured. We'll deal with him shortly." Dante gestured to an empty chair. "Sit. You should hear this." Lila sat. The family members watched her with expressions ranging from curious to hostile. She was an outsider here, a civilian in a world that didn't welcome civilians. "As I was explaining," Dante continued, addressing the room, "last night Victor Moretti attempted to murder me, Dr. Hart, and her mother. He burned down a secure facility, killed 3 of our people, injured 5 more. This wasn't a business dispute. This was terrorism." "He's family," someone objected. An older man, distinguished, probably one of the uncles. "We handle family matters internally." "We did handle it internally," Dante shot back. "We gave him due process, presented evidence, let the family vote. He lost, and he responded with violence. He forfeited his right to family protection." "So what are you proposing?" A woman this time, sharp-eyed and calculating. Dante's aunt, maybe. "Exile? Imprisonment? I'm proposing we let Dr. Hart decide." Every head in the room turned to Lila. She felt her stomach drop. "What?" she managed. "Victor targeted you specifically, threatened your mother, nearly killed both of you." Dante's voice was eerily calm. "In my world, the victim gets to choose the punishment. So I'm asking you, Dr. Hart, what happens to Victor Moretti?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Lila's brain scrambled for an answer, finding nothing. What did she know about justice in this world? About appropriate punishment for attempted murder? About the weight of holding someone's fate in your hands? I can't." She looked around the room, desperate. "This isn't my world. I'm a historian. I authenticate documents. I don't decide who lives or dies." "You already did," Dante said quietly. "The moment you spoke up in that restaurant, you changed everything. You can't go back to invisible now. So choose." Lila's hands were shaking. She clasped them together under the table. "What are my options?" "Death, exile, prison." Dante listed them like menu items. "Each has consequences. Death is permanent but creates martyrs. Exile means he could return someday. Prison in our system means he lives but powerless, watching the family continue without him. You want me to order his execution. I want you to make an informed choice." "That's not a choice. That's a test." Lila stood up. The chair scraped loud in the silent room. "You want to see if I'm cold enough for your world? If I can pull that trigger, metaphorically speaking, if I'm willing to get blood on my hands to survive here." "Are you?" Dante's eyes were unreadable. Lila thought about her mother, terrified and confused in that burning lodge. Thought about Patricia, bleeding in the dirt. Thought about the future Victor promised if he lived. More attempts, more violence, more people hurt because of choices Lila had made. "Prison," she said finally. "Not death, not exile. Prison where he can't hurt anyone, but he has to watch you succeed. Where every day he's reminded that he lost, that his perfect plan failed because a broke waitress knew more about art than he did." The room was silent. Then someone laughed, the sharp-eyed aunt. "Smart," she said. "Death would have been easier, kinder even. But this is punishment." "It's also survivable," Lila added, looking at Dante. "Which means you don't become the man who killed his cousin. You're better than that. You want to be better than that. This lets you be." Something flickered in Dante's expression. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. Hard to tell. "Prison it is," he said. "Marco, bring him in." The doors opened. 2 guards dragged Victor Moretti into the room, and Lila barely recognized him. Beaten, bloody, zip-tied at the wrists, the charming smile gone, replaced by something feral and hateful. His eyes found Lila. "You," he spat. "This is your fault. All of it." No," Lila said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "This is your fault. You spent 5 years trying to destroy Dante. You failed. That's on you. I would have succeeded if you hadn't, but I did." Lila leaned forward. I saw your forgery. I exposed your network. I helped build the case against you. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell knowing you lost to a historian who was serving champagne a week ago. Victor lunged forward. The guards caught him, slammed him back. I'll kill you. I swear to... You'll do nothing, Dante interrupted. You're done, Victor. Finished. The family has voted. Your assets are seized, your position revoked, and you're going somewhere you'll never threaten anyone again. Where? Victor's voice cracked. Where are you sending me? Somewhere creative. Dante's smile was terrible. A private facility, very secure, very isolated. You'll have a cell, meals, medical care, everything you need to live a long, long life, alone with your failure. They dragged Victor out. He was screaming now, threats and curses and promises of revenge that echoed down the hallway until distance swallowed them. The room remained silent even after he was gone. Well, the sharp-eyed aunt said finally, that was dramatic. It's over, Dante said. He looked exhausted, hollowed out. Victor's contained, the forgery network dismantled. Dr. Hart's mother is safe. It's over. But it didn't feel over. Lila could still hear Victor's screams, could still feel the weight of that choice. Prison, she'd said. Mercy disguised as punishment. But it felt like she'd just condemned a man to living death, and she wasn't sure how to feel about that. The meeting broke up, family members filing out, some nodding to Dante, others to Lila, accepting her as one of them now, or at least acknowledging she existed. The aunt paused by Lila's chair. You did well, she said. Most people would have chosen death. Easier that way. I'm not most people. No, you're not. The aunt smiled. Remember that. When things get hard and you start questioning your choices, you're not most people, Dr. Hart. That's why you survived. Then she was gone too, and it was just Lila and Dante in the empty conference room. Silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sounds of the city. Are you okay? Dante asked. I just condemned a man to prison. I'm not sure what okay means anymore. It means you're still breathing, still fighting, still here. Dante sat down heavily. Victor made his choices. You made yours. That's all anyone can do. Is it enough? It has to be. They sat in silence for a while, Lila processing everything that had happened, Dante probably doing the same. A week ago, she'd been invisible, safe, irrelevant. Now she was sitting in a room where family business got decided, wearing another woman's blood on her jacket, having just determined a man's fate. What happens now? She asked finally. Now? Dante rubbed his face. Now we clean up, contact the dealers Victor worked with, recover what we can, rebuild the collection, document everything legitimate and destroy everything fake. Start over with better security and better people. And me? You keep doing what you're doing, authenticating, building protocols, making sure this never happens again. He paused. Unless you want out. I'd understand. You've earned the right to walk away. Walk away? Back to what? Serving champagne? Her studio apartment? The invisible life she'd built from necessity? After everything that had happened, that life felt like someone else's, like a jacket that didn't fit anymore. I want to see my mother, Lila said instead of answering. Make sure she's really okay. Of course. They went back upstairs. Found Louise awake, sitting up, looking more alert than she had in days. Dr. Reeves was gone, just Louise in the suite, waiting. Baby, she said when she saw Lila. You look terrible. Thanks, Mom. I mean it. When's the last time you slept? Yesterday. Maybe. Time had stopped making sense. Louise patted the bed beside her. Sit. Tell me what happened. So Lila did. Not everything. She left out the worst parts, the violence, the screaming, but enough. Victor contained. The threat neutralized. Safety, or at least the promise of it. And you chose prison, Louise said when Lila finished. Not death. How did you? I'm losing my memory, not my hearing. The walls are thin. Louise took Lila's hand. That was the right choice. Was it? I don't know anymore. He tried to kill you. Kill me. Maybe death would have been justice? Louise shook her head. Death is easy, baby. It's living with consequences that's hard. You gave him life. That's harder for him and better for you. Trust me. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just stopped listening when I started forgetting. Louise squeezed her hand. Now go, sleep, shower, eat something that isn't vending machine food. I'll be fine. You sure? I'm sure. Lila found a guest room down the hall, showered until the water ran cold, washing away Patricia's blood, smoke smell, fear. Changed into clean clothes someone had left, ate food someone brought. Everything provided, everything handled, like Dante's world always worked. She meant to sleep for an hour, woke up 12 hours later to darkness and her phone buzzing with messages. Marco checking in. The facility where Louise was staying. 3 texts from Dante. Sleep well, call when you're up, we need to talk. Lila found him in an office on the 2nd floor surrounded by documents. The forgery network, she realized. Everything they'd compiled. Every fake piece, every fraudulent dealer, every thread of Victor's conspiracy laid out like evidence. You're awake, Dante said. He looked better, cleaned up, bandages changed, still exhausted but functional. You said we need to talk. Sit. He gestured to a chair. I've been thinking about your role. What comes next? Here it was. The moment where he politely thanked her for her service and showed her the door. Lila braced herself. I want you to run it, Dante said. Run what? The collection, the authentication process, everything. I'm creating a foundation, legitimate, above board, dedicated to preserving historical artifacts and preventing fraud. You'd be the director, full control, real salary, your mother's care covered indefinitely. Lila stared at him. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you purpose, a chance to do what you're good at with resources most historians never see, a chance to be visible again, on your terms. Why? Because you're brilliant, because you saved me from looking like an idiot, because you chose mercy when violence would have been easier. Dante leaned forward, because I need someone I can trust, and Dr. Hart, in a world full of liars, you're the only person who's been honest with me from the start. It was too much. Too good. Too close to everything she'd wanted 6 years ago before her mother got sick and reality crushed her dreams. I need to think about it, Lila said. Fair. Take your time. But Dr. Hart? Dante smiled. I've already filed the paperwork. The foundation exists. It just needs a director willing to run it. You were that sure I'd say yes? I was hopeful. Lila left him there with his documents and his hope. Went back to her mother's suite, found Louise awake, reading a book someone had brought. A history book. Spanish colonial period. That's my field, Lila said. I know. Found it in the library downstairs. This building has a remarkable library. Louise set the book aside. Did he offer you the job? How do you... I'm old, not stupid. Of course he offered you a job. The question is whether you'll take it. I don't know. It's dangerous. This world is dangerous. Life is dangerous, Louise countered. You can hide from it, or you can live it. You've been hiding for 6 years, baby. For me. Because you love me. But I don't want to be the reason you stop living. Mom, listen to me. I'm going to forget you eventually. Probably soon. The doctors say I have maybe a year before I don't recognize you anymore. Louise's voice cracked. When that happens, I don't want your last memories of yourself to be serving champagne and playing it safe. I want you to be Dr. Lila Hart, the youngest tenure-track professor Columbia ever had, the woman who exposed a criminal conspiracy because she knew more about watermarks than anyone alive. Be her. While I can still remember her. Tears burned Lila's eyes. I'm scared. Good. Being scared means you're alive. Louise pulled her close. Take the job. Build something beautiful. Let me watch you shine before I forget what light looks like. Lila held her mother and cried. For lost time, for inevitable endings, for the unfairness of a disease that stole people piece by piece, for everything they'd been through and everything still coming. When she finally pulled away, her decision was made. She found Dante still in his office, still surrounded by documents. He looked up when she entered. I'll take it, Lila said. The job, the foundation, all of it. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Dante smiled, genuine this time. When can you start? Tomorrow? Tonight? Whenever you need me? Tomorrow's fine. Tonight you should rest. I'm done resting. I've been resting for 6 years. Lila pulled up a chair. Show me what you have. Let's figure out how to build something legitimate from all this. They worked through the night, building protocols, establishing procedures, creating something that could survive scrutiny from actual authorities, a foundation that could hold historical artifacts legitimately, preserve them properly, and prevent another victor from poisoning the collection. By dawn, they had the skeleton. By noon, they had the structure. By evening, Lila had her first official act as director, reaching out to Alessandro Vitale, the dealer who'd sold Dante the forgeries, offering him a deal. Work with us, she told him over the phone. Help us track down every fake you sold, every piece in Victor's network. Document everything. In exchange, we don't destroy your reputation. We give you a chance to rebuild. Alessandro was silent for a long moment. Then, why would you do that? Because I believe people deserve second chances, even people who made mistakes. She paused. Just don't make me regret it. I won't. Dr. Hart, I swear I won't. It was a start. Not justice, maybe, but something better, something that felt like progress. Over the next few days, the foundation took shape. Real office space, real employees, authentication equipment that made Lila feel like she'd died and gone to historian heaven. Resources she'd dreamed about in grad school, now at her fingertips. Her mother moved to a new facility, closer, better. Still private, but less bunker-like. Somewhere Louise could have her books and her dignity, and Lila could visit without feeling like she was entering a crime scene. The visits got harder. Some days Louise knew her. Some days she called Lila by her grandmother's name. Some days she didn't speak at all, just smiled vaguely and returned to her books like the words could save her from forgetting. It's progressing, Dr. Reeves said gently after one particularly bad visit. Faster than we hoped. I'm sorry. Lila nodded numbly. What could you say to that? Thank you for confirming my worst fears? Appreciate the honesty about watching my mother disappear? She threw herself into work instead, authenticating Dante's collection piece by piece, documenting everything, building a database that could withstand academic scrutiny, creating something that mattered. 3 weeks after Victor's imprisonment, they held the Foundation's first official event, a small gathering, art historians, museum curators, legitimate collectors, people from Lila's old world, now part of her new one. Dante gave a speech about preserving history, about the importance of authentication, about building institutions that could outlast individual ambitions. He was good at it, the public face, the polished words. You'd never know this man had ordered his cousin locked away. Never suspect the violence lurking beneath the expensive suit. Lila gave her own speech. Academic, precise, about forgery detection techniques and the importance of rigorous documentation. Her old professors were there, colleagues from Columbia, people who'd watched her disappear 6 years ago, now watching her return. After, her old department chair approached her, Professor Chen, who'd written her recommendation letters a lifetime ago. Dr. Hart, he said warmly, it's good to see you back in the field. It's good to be back. We heard about your mother. I'm sorry. Thank you. If you ever want to return to academia, to teaching, there would be a place for you. Your research on colonial documentation is still considered groundbreaking. It was the offer she'd dreamed about 6 years ago. Security, prestige, everything she'd lost. Professor Chen was handing it back like it had just been waiting. I appreciate that, Lila said carefully, but I'm committed here. This foundation, this work, it's important. Of course, but the offer stands if you change your mind. He drifted away to examine the exhibits. Lila stood there processing. She could go back, return to her old life or something like it. Safe, respectable, normal. But that life felt like it belonged to someone else now. Someone who hadn't chosen mercy over revenge. Someone who hadn't held her mother during a burning building. Someone who hadn't learned that invisible wasn't the same as safe. You okay? Dante appeared at her elbow, 2 champagne glasses in hand. Professor Chen offered me my old job back. Are you taking it? No. Why not? Lila accepted the champagne. Because this matters more. Because I'm not the person who'd want that job anymore. Because she stopped. How to explain? Because I'd rather be visible doing something meaningful than safe doing something expected. Even if visible means dangerous? Especially then. Dante clinked his glass against hers. To visibility. To visibility, Lila echoed. They stood together, watching art historians examine pieces she'd authenticated, watching her old world merge with her new one, building something that could last. Later that night, after the guests left and the gallery was empty, Lila found herself standing in front of the fake Lotto painting. Still in its case, still labeled as fraudulent, evidence of Victor's conspiracy, preserved like a cautionary tale. We could destroy it, Dante said, coming to stand beside her. Burn it. Make it disappear. No, keep it. Lila studied the painting, beautiful despite being fake, masterful in its deception. Keep all of them, the forgeries. Display them alongside the real pieces. Show people how sophisticated fraud can be. Make it educational. Turn my mistakes into lessons. Turn your mistakes into armor, so nobody can weaponize them again. Dante was quiet for a moment. Then, you're brilliant, you know that? I'm practical. There's a difference. Is there? Maybe not. Maybe in this world, brilliance and practicality were the same thing. Survival required both. They stood there in the empty gallery, surrounded by art real and fake, history preserved and lies exposed. Partners in this strange venture, protector and protected. Criminal and scholar. Two people from different worlds who'd found common ground in authentication and honesty and the shared understanding that invisibility was just another form of lying. Thank you, Lila said quietly. For what? For seeing me, when I was invisible, for believing I was worth protecting. Dr. Hart, Dante turned to face her. You were never invisible. You were just standing in the wrong light. I just moved the spotlight. That's almost poetic. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. Lila laughed, real and unexpected and desperately needed. The weight that had been crushing her for weeks lifted, just a little. Not gone, never gone, but manageable. Her phone buzzed, the facility where her mother was staying. Miss Hart, your mother's asking for you. She's having a good day, very lucid. If you wanted to visit, I'm on my way. She hung up, looked at Dante. Go, he said before she could ask. I'll handle closing up here. Lila went, caught a car to the facility, found her mother sitting up in bed reading the same Spanish colonial history book from before. Lila, Louise said, her eyes clear and focused. Perfect timing. I was just reading about Cortez's conquest of Mexico. Did you know he burned his own ships so his men couldn't retreat? Made success the only option. I did know that. Of course you did. You're the expert. Louise set the book aside. Tell me about the foundation. How's it going? So Lila did. Told her mother about the event, about the authentication protocols, about choosing to keep the forgeries as education, about building something that mattered from the wreckage of Victor's conspiracy. Louise listened, nodding occasionally, asking smart questions. Present, here. Her mother, the way she used to be. I'm proud of you, Louise said when Lila finished. You know that, right? So proud. I know, Mom. Good, because I might not remember to tell you tomorrow or the next day. So I'm telling you now, while I still can. You're brilliant and brave and everything I hoped you'd be. I learned from the best. You did. Louise took her hand. Now tell me about him. The dangerous one. Dante. What about him? Don't play dumb. You like him. He's my employer, he's more than that. I can see it. The way you talk about him, the way your voice changes. Louise squeezed her hand. It's okay. You're allowed to feel things, even complicated things about complicated people. Lila didn't know what to say to that, because her mother was right. Somewhere between the forgeries and the gunfire, between choosing mercy and building foundations, her feelings about Dante Moretti had gotten complicated. He was dangerous, criminal, everything she should run from. But he was also honest, protective, someone who collected meaning in a meaningless world, someone who'd seen her when she was invisible and believed she was worth the spotlight. It's complicated, Lila said finally. The best things usually are. Louise smiled. Just don't hide from it, baby. Life's too short. Mine especially. They sat together for another hour, talking about nothing important. Books they'd read, places they'd been, memories from before everything got complicated. Time stolen from disease, precious and temporary. When Lila finally left, Louise was asleep again, the book open on her lap. Still here. Still her mother. But for how much longer? Lila drove back to the Foundation building in the dark. Found Dante still there, working late in his office. He looked up when she entered. How is she? Good. Really good today, but it won't last. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. Today was a gift. I'll take what I can get. Lila sat down across from him. She asked about you. About us. What did you tell her? That it's complicated. Is it? Lila looked at him. Really looked. At the man who'd hired her to save his reputation. Who'd protected her mother. Who'd given her purpose when she'd forgotten what purpose felt like. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. Yes, she said, but complicated doesn't mean impossible. Dante smiled. No, it doesn't. They sat there in the quiet office, city lights glittering through the windows, the future uncertain but finally within reach. Victor was contained. The collection was being restored, the foundation was real and growing, and Lila Hart was visible. Seen, standing in the right light at last. It wasn't perfect. Nothing in Dante's world was perfect, but it was real, and it was hers, and that was enough. For now, it was enough. 3 months passed like water through fingers. The foundation grew. More staff, more pieces authenticated, more legitimacy in a world that had only known Dante Moretti through newspaper allegations. Lila fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal if she ignored the armed guards, and the way certain phone calls still made Dante's expression go cold and distant. Her mother deteriorated, not all at once, not dramatically, just slowly, inevitably, like watching a photograph fade in sunlight. Some days Louise recognized her. Some days she called Lila by her sister's name, an aunt who'd died 20 years ago. Some days she just stared at the walls and hummed songs from her childhood that nobody else remembered. It's expected, Dr. Reeves said during one of their regular check-ins. The progression is actually slower than we anticipated. Whatever you're doing, it's working. What they were doing was stealing time. Lila visited every other day, sometimes more. Read to her mother, showed her photos, talked about the foundation work even when Louise's eyes glazed over with incomprehension. Pretending that if she just kept talking, kept filling the silence, her mother wouldn't slip away completely. Dante came with her once, sat quietly in the corner while Lila read from a book about Spanish explorers, Louise dozing peacefully. He didn't say much, just watched. After, in the car ride back, he'd been unusually quiet. My father had dementia, he said finally. End stage. Didn't recognize anyone. Would scream at shadows. It was... He stopped. I'm sorry. About your mother. About all of it. Did you visit him, your father? No, I was too angry, too busy proving I was different. By the time I wasn't angry anymore, he was gone. Dante stared out the window. I regret that. Then don't let me make the same mistake, Lila said. Every time I think I'm too busy, too tired, remind me. Promise? I promise. He kept that promise. Would text her on days she got buried in work. Visit your mother. Simple. Direct. A reminder that time was a luxury they couldn't afford to waste. The Foundation's first major acquisition came in late September. A collection from an estate in Boston. Paintings, manuscripts, artifacts spanning 3 centuries. Legitimate provenance, fair price, everything above board. Lila spent 2 weeks authenticating every piece, building documentation that would survive scrutiny from any museum in the world. This is clean, she told Dante, spreading the reports across his desk. Not a single fake. Whoever assembled this collection knew what they were doing. Good. That's the point. Dante signed the acquisition papers. We're legitimate now, Dr. Hart. A real foundation doing real work. No more Victor, no more questions. You sound surprised. I am, a little. I've spent 20 years being the guy newspapers call alleged and suspected. Now I'm the guy donating to museums and funding historical research. It's disorienting. You're still you, Lila said, just with better publicity. Is that what you think? That I haven't changed? She considered that. Dante had changed? Not completely. He still had guards, still took phone calls he wouldn't discuss, still moved through the world with that controlled danger. But there was something different too, lighter, maybe. Like the weight of Victor's betrayal had been holding him down, and removing it had let him breathe. You're becoming who you wanted to be, Lila said. That's different from changing. You were always this person, just buried under circumstances. Poetic, Dr. Hart. I have my moments. They were working late more often now. Not because they had to, the foundation practically ran itself with the staff they'd hired, but because neither of them wanted to go home to empty apartments and too much thinking. So they stayed, worked, talked about art and history, and carefully avoided talking about the thing that was growing between them. Until one night in October when they couldn't avoid it anymore. They'd been authenticating a series of letters supposedly from Thomas Jefferson. Lila had confirmed 3 as genuine and exposed 2 as very good forgeries. The work was meticulous, exhausting. By midnight, her eyes were crossing. I need a break, she said, pushing back from the microscope. Food? Dante suggested. There's that Italian place around the corner, still open. It's midnight. They know me? Of course they did. Everyone in this neighborhood knew Dante Moretti. They walked to the restaurant, small, family-owned, the kind of place that had been there forever. The owner greeted Dante like family, seated them at a corner table, brought wine without asking. You come here a lot? Lila asked. My grandfather used to bring me here, back when this neighborhood was different, before the money moved in. Dante poured wine. He'd tell stories about the old days. Probably shouldn't have been telling a 10-year-old about extortion and broken knees, but that was my childhood. Sounds rough. It was normal. I didn't know anything else. He paused. What was yours like? Normal in a different way. Library on weekends, museums. My mother making me read the encyclopedia for fun. Lila smiled at the memory. I thought all kids spent Saturday afternoons learning about Renaissance art. Turns out that was just me. You miss it, that version of normal. Every day, but I wouldn't go back. Not really. That Lila was smaller, safer. She never would have spoken up in that restaurant. And now? Now I'm the person who did. Lila met his eyes. For better or worse. The food arrived, pasta that smelled like heaven, bread still warm from the oven. They ate mostly in silence, comfortable in a way that felt new and familiar at the same time. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. I need to tell you something, Dante said when the plates were cleared. About the foundation, about where we're going from here. Lila's stomach dropped. You're shutting it down. What? No, the opposite. He pulled out his phone, showing her documents. I'm transferring ownership, giving the foundation to you, full control. I'll still fund it, still serve on the board, but you'll own it. Make all the decisions. Why would you? Because it should belong to someone who understands what it means. Someone who actually cares about the work, not the optics. Dante set his phone down. Dr. Hart, I started this to protect my reputation, to prove Victor wrong, but you've turned it into something real, something important. It should be yours. Lila stared at the documents. Transfer of ownership, control of assets, everything he'd built, handed over like it was nothing. This is too much, she said. It's exactly enough. You've earned it. He leaned forward. Besides, I trust you. That's rarer than you think in my world. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Take the foundation. Build something that outlasts both of us. Lila looked at the documents, at the future he was offering, independence, authority, the ability to do the work she'd always dreamed about without compromise. All she had to do was accept. Yes, she said. I'll take it. Dante smiled. Good. The lawyers will handle the paperwork, should be finalized within a month. They walked back to the foundation building through streets mostly empty. October air cool enough to need jackets. The city different at night, quieter, more honest somehow. Like it dropped its daytime mask. Can I ask you something? Lila said. The phone calls you take. The ones where your expression goes cold. What are those about? Business. What kind of business? Dante was quiet for a long moment. The kind I'm trying to leave behind. Family obligations, old debts, things that don't end just because I want them to. Are they dangerous? Not to you, never to you. He stopped walking. Dr. Hart, I know what I am, what I was, what parts of me still are. I'm trying to be better, build something legitimate, but I can't completely separate from that world, not without consequences. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to be honest with me. I am being honest. There are parts of my life you shouldn't know about. For your protection, for your plausible deniability if things ever go wrong. His jaw tightened. I'm trying to keep you separate from that, safe from it. I don't want to be separate. I want to understand. Why? Because I care about you, because complicated doesn't scare me anymore, because I've seen you at your worst, and you're still the person who keeps promises and protects people and collects meaning in a meaningless world. Lila didn't say any of that, just looked at him in the streetlight and hoped he could read what she couldn't speak. Because we're partners, she said finally. Partners should be honest with each other. Even when the truth is ugly? Especially then. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, showed her a text message. 3 words. Package delivered successfully. That's code, he explained. Means someone paid a debt they owed the family. Usually means violence was involved. Usually means I authorized it. He put the phone away. That's the truth, Dr. Hart. That's who I still am under the expensive suits and the foundation. Someone who solves problems with threats and force when necessary. Can you handle that? Lila thought about Victor, about choosing his punishment, about the armed guards and the burning lodge and all the violence that had touched her life since that night at the plaza. She'd been naive to think she could work with Dante and stay clean. The question wasn't whether she could handle the truth. The question was whether she could handle knowing and staying anyway. I can handle it, she said, as long as you're honest with me. No more protecting me from information. Let me decide what I can handle. That's a dangerous request. I'm aware. You might learn things you can't unknow. I'm aware of that too. Dante nodded slowly. All right. Honesty. Complete honesty. But Dr. Hart, if that honesty ever puts you in danger, I'm going back to protection mode. Non-negotiable. Fair. They resumed walking. The foundation building appeared ahead, lights still on in the upper floors. Their refuge, their shared project, the thing they'd built from crisis and chaos. For what it's worth, Dante said, I'm glad you spoke up that night. In the restaurant. Changed my life. Probably saved it. Probably destroyed mine, Lila replied. But in a good way. Destruction is renovation. That's very philosophical. I have my moments. They worked until 3 a.m., finishing the Jefferson authentication. 2 genuine letters, 2 forgeries, one that needed more testing. Comprehensive documentation. Everything above board. When they finally called it a night, Lila felt accomplished rather than exhausted. Her phone rang on the way to the car, the facility. Ms. Hart? The night nurse. Your mother's asking for you. She's saying things that don't make sense. Something about fire and danger. She's very agitated. I'm coming. Dante drove without being asked. They made it to the facility in 20 minutes, the city blurring past. Louise's room was at the end of the hall, and they could hear her before they saw her. Fire! The building's on fire! We need to get out! Louise was trying to climb out of bed, fighting the nurse trying to calm her. Where's Lila? Where's my daughter? I'm here, Mom. Lila rushed to the bed. I'm right here. Louise's eyes focused. The lodge, it's burning. You need to run. That was months ago, Mom, remember? We got out. We're safe. No, it's happening now. I can smell the smoke. Louise clutched Lila's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't let them hurt you. Please don't let them hurt you. Nobody's going to hurt me. Dante's here. He's protecting us. The dangerous one? Louise looked past Lila, found Dante. You keep your promise? You protect my girl? Every day, Dante said. I promise. Good. Louise's agitation faded. She sank back into the pillows, exhausted. I forget things, so many things, but I remember being scared, remember fire and running, remember thinking I'd lose her. You didn't lose me. I'm right here. For now. But I'm losing you, aren't I? Piece by piece, soon I won't remember you at all. Louise's eyes filled with tears. That's what's really on fire, my mind. Burning down, taking all my memories with it. Lila couldn't speak, just held her mother's hand while Louise cried for the loss of herself. Dr. Reeves appeared with medication, something to calm her, help her sleep. Within minutes, Louise's eyes were drifting closed. Stay, she whispered. Don't leave me alone. I won't. Lila stayed, sat in the uncomfortable chair beside the bed while her mother slept. Dante stayed too, standing by the window, silent support. They didn't talk, didn't need to. Some moments were too heavy for words. When Louise woke hours later, she didn't remember the episode. Didn't remember the fire or the fear or begging Lila to stay. She just smiled vaguely and asked if they could read together. What do you want to hear? Lila asked. Something about explorers, people who went into the unknown and came back changed. Lila read from a book about Magellan's circumnavigation. Louise listened peacefully, occasionally asking questions that showed she understood even when she couldn't remember. When she finally drifted back to sleep, the book was still open on Lila's lap. She's getting worse, Dr. Reeves said in the hallway. The agitation, the flashbacks to traumatic events, it's common in advanced stages. How long? Months, maybe less. I'm sorry, Ms. Hart. There's nothing more we can do except keep her comfortable. Comfortable. Such a clinical word for watching your mother disappear. Lila nodded numbly, accepting the inevitable because what choice did she have? Dante drove her home, not to her old studio apartment long since abandoned, but to the new place near the foundation. Bigger, nicer, courtesy of her new salary. She'd barely furnished it, hadn't had time or energy or will to make anywhere feel permanent. I'll stay if you want, Dante offered. On the couch, just so you're not alone. You don't have to. I know, but I'm offering anyway. Lila nodded. She didn't want to be alone. Didn't want to sit in the dark apartment thinking about her mother burning down from the inside. Didn't want to face the future without distraction. Dante stayed. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, not talking, just existing in the same space. Eventually, exhaustion won and Lila dozed off, head tilted against the cushions. When she woke hours later, sun streaming through windows, there was a blanket over her and Dante was gone. A note on the coffee table. Had to handle something. Call if you need anything. Lila made coffee, showered, went through the motions of being functional. Her phone was full of messages, the foundation staff asking questions, Professor Chen following up on his job offer, Alessandro checking in about a new authentication request. Normal things, work things, life things. She answered them all mechanically. Yes, approve that acquisition. No, still not interested in teaching. Send the documentation, I'll review it. Playing the role of director, expert, functional human being while inside she was screaming. The knock on her door came mid-morning. Lila answered it to find Dante's aunt, the sharp-eyed woman from the family meetings, standing in the hallway holding a casserole dish. Mrs. Moretti? Lila said, confused. Rosa, call me Rosa. She walked in without waiting for an invitation. Dante said you had a rough night. Nobody should face rough nights alone, so I brought food. Thank you. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. You're family now. Rosa set the dish on the kitchen counter. Not by blood, but by choice, which matters more. When family hurts, we show up. That's how this works. Lila didn't know what to say. Family. She'd been so focused on losing her mother, she hadn't noticed she'd gained something else. This strange, complicated, slightly dangerous group of people who apparently now considered her one of them. I don't understand, Lila said. Why would you? We barely know each other. You stood up for Dante when he needed it. You chose mercy when most would have chosen blood, and you make my nephew smile, which he hasn't done genuinely in years. Rosa studied her. That's enough for me. So when he called this morning saying you needed support, I came. That's what family does. She left after extracting a promise that Lila would eat the food and call if she needed anything. When she was gone, Lila stared at the casserole like it was an alien artifact. Family, support, people showing up because they cared. When had that become her life? The next weeks blurred together. Lila worked, visited her mother. tried to pretend everything was normal while watching Louise slip further away. The good days became rare. The confused days became standard. The days when her mother didn't recognize her at all became more frequent than Lila wanted to count. "Tell me about the foundation," Louise said during one of her lucid moments. They were rare enough now to be precious. "What you're building." So Lila told her about the acquisitions, about establishing protocols that other institutions were starting to adopt, about becoming respected in the field again, recognized for expertise rather than invisible. "You're happy," Louise said. "It wasn't a question. I'm content, purposeful." "That's not the same as happy." "No," Lila admitted. "It's not. But Mom, I don't know if happy is possible right now. Not with—" She couldn't finish. "Not with me dying." Louise said it matter-of-factly. "I'm not dead yet, baby, but I'm dying. We can say it. Pretending doesn't make it less true." "I'm not ready." "Nobody ever is." "But Lila, listen to me. When I'm gone, when I can't remember you anymore, which is basically the same thing, you don't get to use me as an excuse to hide. You understand? You don't get to be invisible again just because I'm not here to see you shine." "How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to just keep going when—" "Because that's what living means. Moving forward even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts." Louise gripped her hand. "Promise me. Promise you'll keep building. Keep choosing visibility. Keep letting people see the real you." "I promise." "And that man, Dante. You love him?" The question caught Lila off guard. "I don't—" "It's complicated. It's a yes or no question." "Was it?" Lila thought about Dante, about the way he kept his promises, about how he'd become the person who reminded her to visit her mother, who stayed when she needed support, who'd given her a foundation and trust and honesty even when it was ugly, about how complicated had somehow become comfortable. "Yes," she said quietly. "I love him." "Then tell him. Life's too short for maybe. Trust me on this." That night, Lila went to find Dante. He was in his office at the foundation, working late as usual. He looked up when she entered, concern immediate in his expression. "Everything okay? Your mother—" "She's fine. Lucid today. We talked." Lila closed the door, sat down across from him. "She asked if I love you." Dante went very still. "What did you say?" "I said yes." The silence stretched. Dante's expression was unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. "That's inconvenient." Lila's stomach dropped. "Inconvenient. Because I love you too. And I've been trying really hard not to, trying to keep things professional, keep you safe, not drag you deeper into my world than you already are." He ran a hand through his hair. "I've been failing spectacularly at all of that. So we're both in love and both trying to pretend we're not? Apparently." "That's stupid," Lila said. "Extremely stupid." "So what do we do about it?" Dante stood, walked around the desk, sat on the edge, close enough that Lila could reach out and touch him if she wanted. "We stop pretending. We acknowledge that this, whatever this is, matters. And we figure out how to make it work, even though it's complicated and dangerous and probably a terrible idea. My mother said life's too short for maybe." "Your mother's right." Dante reached out, took Lila's hand. "I can't promise this will be easy. My world is still my world, but I can promise I'll be honest. I'll protect you. I'll keep showing up." "That's all I need." He kissed her then, soft and careful, and like he'd been wanting to for months. Lila kissed him back, thinking about all the choices that had led here. Speaking up in a restaurant, choosing mercy over revenge, building something meaningful from chaos, falling in love with someone complicated in a complicated world. When they finally pulled apart, Dante was smiling. "Your mother's going to be insufferable when you tell her." "Probably. She predicted this months ago." "Smart woman." "The smartest." They stayed there in the office, holding hands, planning a future that was uncertain, but finally theirs to choose. No more pretending, no more hiding. Just two people who'd found each other in darkness and decided to build toward light. 3 weeks later, Louise stopped recognizing Lila at all, just looked at her with vague confusion and called her dear, like she was a helpful stranger. The doctor said it was expected. Irreversible. The final stage. Lila visited anyway, read to her mother even though Louise didn't know who was reading, held her hand even though the connection was gone, because it mattered to Lila, even if her mother couldn't remember. "She seems peaceful," Dr. Reeves said. "No pain, no distress, just drifting." Peaceful. Lila supposed that was something. Her mother wasn't suffering, wasn't scared, just slowly fading like a signal getting weaker and weaker. Louise's heart died on a Tuesday in November, quietly, in her sleep, the way everyone hoped to go. The facility called at 3 a.m. Lila had been expecting it for weeks. That didn't make it hurt less. Dante drove her to the facility, held her while she said goodbye to a shell that used to be her mother. Handled the arrangements because Lila couldn't think straight enough to handle anything. Rosa showed up with food again. The family sent flowers. People Lila barely knew expressed condolences because apparently she was part of something now. The funeral was small. Just Lila, Dante, a handful of Louise's former colleagues from the library, and Professor Chen representing Columbia. They buried her next to Lila's father, in a cemetery in Queens that was too loud and too urban, but at least they were together. "She was proud of you," Professor Chen said afterward. "She told me once, years ago, that you were going to change the world. Looks like she was right. I just authenticate art. You do more than that. You expose fraud. You build institutions. You make truth matter in a world full of lies." He paused. "Your mother saw that, even at the end. She knew who you'd become." Lila wanted to believe that, wanted to think that somewhere in her mother's dissolving mind, some part had recognized the woman Lila had become. But she'd never know. That knowledge had died with Louise. The grief was a physical thing, heavy, crushing. Lila went through the motions, worked, ate, slept, but everything felt distant, like she was watching herself from far away. "You need time," Dante said. "Take a leave from the foundation, as long as you need." I need to work. If I stop, I'll fall apart." "Then fall apart. I'll catch you." He did. When Lila broke down crying over a manuscript that reminded her of her mother, when she couldn't sleep for 3 days straight, when she screamed at the universe for taking the only family she had, Dante was there, catching her, holding her together when she couldn't do it herself. Rosa came by with food regularly. Marco checked in. Alessandro sent flowers and an awkward condolence card. The family, Dante's family, now somehow hers too, surrounded her with quiet support. Not fixing anything because nothing could be fixed. Just being present. 6 weeks after the funeral, Lila finally went back to the foundation properly. Not just going through motions, but actually working, actually caring. The staff had held everything together in her absence, but there were decisions only she could make. "Welcome back," the lead curator said. "We missed you." "I missed this," Lila admitted. And she had. The work. The purpose. The meaning Louise had always told her to chase. That afternoon, a package arrived. No return address. Just Lila's name and the foundation's address in careful handwriting. Inside was a book, Spanish colonial history, the same one Louise had been reading in those final lucid days. A note tucked inside. "She wanted you to have this, said you'd need it. Patricia, the nurse from the lodge, who'd been shot protecting them, who'd apparently stayed in touch with Louise during those final months." Lila opened the book with shaking hands, found her mother's handwriting in the margins, notes, observations, questions Louise must have written during her last good days. And on the inside cover, in Louise's familiar script, "For Lila. Keep exploring, keep seeking truth, keep shining. I'll always be proud of you, even when I can't remember why. Love, Mom." Lila broke down crying right there in her office. But this time, it wasn't just grief. It was gratitude. Her mother had left her one last message, one final reminder that she'd been seen, known, loved. Dante found her there an hour later, book clutched to her chest. "You okay?" he asked. "No, but I will be." Lila showed him the note. She knew. Even at the end, she knew who I was. "Of course she did. You're unforgettable." That's cheesy. Doesn't make it less true. They sat together in the quiet office, the city humming outside, the foundation growing around them. building something that would outlast them both, just like Louise had wanted. The lawyers finalized the ownership transfer, Dante said. The foundation is officially yours. All decisions, all control. I'm just funding an advisory board now. That's terrifying. You'll be brilliant. You already are. Lila looked around the office, at the work they'd built from crisis, at the legitimacy they'd forged from forgery and fraud, at the future stretching ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. I want to expand, she said suddenly. Not just authentication, education, programs for young historians, scholarships for people who can't afford to pursue this work. Make expertise accessible instead of elite. That sounds expensive. You said you'd fund it. I did say that. Dante smiled. All right. Build your programs, make expertise accessible, change the world. That's ambitious. You told me once that I collect meaning. Maybe it's time you did too. Over the next 6 months, Lila did exactly that. Built programs, hired educators, created scholarships named after her mother, the Louise Hart Fellowship for Historical Research, brought young historians into the foundation, trained them, sent them out into the world to spot forgeries and preserve truth. The foundation became known not just for authentication, but for education, for making historical expertise something accessible and valued. Universities started partnering with them. Museums sent their staff for training. What had started as Dante's reputation defense became something bigger, something important. Alessandro ended up being one of their best partners, reformed fraudster turned passionate educator. He'd take groups through galleries, pointing out fake pieces, explaining how forgeries worked, making people smarter about what they bought and believed. I'm trying to atone, he told Lila during one of these sessions, for the pieces I sold Dante, for being part of Victor's conspiracy. This is how I make it right. You're doing good work. Thanks to you. You could have destroyed me. Instead, you gave me a second chance. He paused. That's not something people in this world usually do. Maybe it should be, Lila replied. The foundation's first anniversary came in late spring. They held a gala, proper fundraiser with donors and speeches, and the kind of formal event Lila used to serve at. Now she was the honoree, the speaker, the person everyone wanted to meet. Dr. Hart, Professor Chen said, approaching with a younger woman, I'd like you to meet Sarah Martinez. She's one of your Louise Hart Fellows, graduating next month. Sarah shook Lila's hand enthusiastically. Your mother would be so proud. This program changed my life. I couldn't have afforded grad school without it. That's exactly what she would have wanted, Lila said. Keep going, keep seeking truth. The world needs people like you. After the gala, Lila and Dante stood on the foundation's balcony, watching the city sparkle in the night. A year ago, Lila had been invisible. Now she was here, seen, building something that mattered. Your mother was right, Dante said. You did change the world. I'm just getting started. I know. That's what scares me. He pulled her close, in the best way. Any regrets? Lila asked. About that night in the restaurant? About hiring me? Only that I didn't do it sooner. Dante kissed her forehead. You saved me, Dr. Hart. From Victor. From myself. From becoming just another criminal pretending to be civilized. We saved each other, Lila corrected. I was drowning in invisibility. You threw me a spotlight. Best decision I ever made. They stood there watching the city, two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something beautiful from the wreckage. The foundation behind them. The future ahead of them. Complicated and messy and absolutely worth fighting for. 6 months later, they opened a second location. Then a third. The Louise Hart Foundation for Historical Preservation became an institution. Respected, valued, changing how people thought about art and authenticity and truth. Dante gradually stepped back from his family's darker businesses. Not completely, some ties couldn't be severed without consequences. But enough. Enough to sleep better. Enough to look at his collection and see beauty instead of blood money. Enough to become the person he'd been trying to be all along. And Lila? Lila stopped apologizing for taking up space. Stopped hiding. Became the expert she'd always been. But now with resources and platform and the confidence that came from surviving fire and fraud and loss. She published papers. Gave lectures. trained the next generation of historians to spot lies and preserve truth. Some days were hard, days when she missed her mother, days when Dante's phone rang with problems from his old world, days when the weight of running an institution felt crushing. But those days were balanced by the good ones. The student who'd landed their dream job, the forgery exposed before someone lost money, the quiet evenings with Dante, planning futures and stealing moments. 2 years after that night at the plaza, Lila stood in front of a Columbia auditorium full of students. Guest lecturer. Professor Chen had finally convinced her to come back. Not permanently, the foundation was her focus, but for one lecture about forgery detection and the importance of expertise in an age of fraud. The students listened intently as she walked them through the Cortez manuscript, the anachronistic watermark, the paper masquerading as vellum, the tiny details that separated genuine from fake. Truth lives in the details, Lila told them. Not in the big obvious tells, but in the small inconsistencies. That's what experts see. That's what we train ourselves to notice, and that's what makes our work matter. A hand raised, a young woman in the front row. But Dr. Hart, what if speaking up is dangerous? What if telling the truth costs you everything? Lila thought about that question. About the night she'd stepped forward in that restaurant. About everything that had followed, the threats, the violence, her mother's death, the rebuilding. About how speaking up had destroyed her invisible life and given her a visible one. Then you speak up anyway, she said. Because truth matters more than safety. Because staying silent makes you complicit. Because... She paused, remembering her mother's words. Because life's too short for maybe. You speak up. You face the consequences, and you build something better from the chaos. The students applauded. After, several approached with questions, with enthusiasm, with that hunger for knowledge Lila recognized from her own past. This was the future. These students. This passion. This commitment to truth. Dante was waiting outside the lecture hall, leaning against the wall with that slight smile he got when he was proud of her. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Good. Really good." Lila took his hand. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing I was worth the risk." "Always," Dante replied. "Always worth the risk." They walked across Columbia's campus, past buildings where Lila used to teach, past memories of who she'd been. But this time, she wasn't that person. She was someone new, someone built from choices and consequences and the courage to speak truth to power. That night, back at the apartment they now shared, Lila stood at the window looking out at the city. The same city she'd navigated invisible for 6 years, still full of people who didn't see each other, still full of lies masquerading as truth, still full of forgeries waiting to be exposed, but also full of light, full of people learning to look closer, full of students and scholars and reformed dealers working to preserve truth, full of possibility. Dante came to stand beside her. "What are you thinking?" "That I'm grateful for all of it, even the hard parts, even losing my mother, because it led here, to this work, to you, to a life that matters." "You think your mother would approve?" Lila thought about Louise, about the woman who'd worked in a library for 30 years, believing knowledge was sacred, about her final message. Keep exploring, keep seeking truth, keep shining. "Yeah," Lila said, "I think she'd approve." She'd done what her mother asked, stayed visible, built something meaningful, chose truth over fear again and again. The Louise Hart Foundation would outlive them all, training historians, exposing frauds, preserving the past for the future. Her mother's legacy and Lila's work intertwined forever. Some stories end with victory, some with loss. This one ended with both, tangled together like threads in a tapestry. Victor imprisoned, his conspiracy dismantled. Louise gone, but remembered. Dante transformed from alleged criminal to respected philanthropist. And Lila, invisible waitress turned foundation director, expert, educator, finally, completely, undeniably seen. The city sparkled below them, full of secrets and lies and truth waiting to be uncovered. And Lila Hart stood at the window, no longer invisible, no longer afraid, ready for whatever came next. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all: speaking up might cost you everything. But staying silent cost you yourself. And that was a price too high to pay. She'd spoken up. She'd survived. She'd built something beautiful from the ashes. And she'd do it all again in a heartbeat.